Hello, and welcome to another episode of Talking Tropes, where the laws of entropy have predicted that we would have to reach our 100th episode. I'm David.
I'm Hannah. Woohoo! We did it! 100
We're celebrating
episodes.
because we've uploaded 50 Talking Tropes episodes. This is our 50th. And we've also uploaded 100 episodes total. That includes 26 Avatar: The Last Korras, 10 TARDIS tropes, 9 primary educations, and a bunch of minis to fill in the rest.
Yeah.
But it's a 100th upload, so big celebration.
Woohoo! I'm pumped. We did it. It feels like a milestone. And so to celebrate, we have done something absurd and insane. We've spent the past.
We've watched 100 episodes that are the 100th episode in their series.
Respective
and so we've looked at a lot of
show,
the longer running network television shows. We've excluded kids shows and animated shows.
Daytime
or
soaps.
Not animated shows, but animated shows for kids.
Yeah. No daytime soaps, no unscripted reality TV shows, just scripted network comedies or dramas.
And we hope to find some patterns. We found a few patterns.
We found a few. We did. Yeah, it's been a wild ride, guys, and I cannot wait to let you in on a little bit of the madness. I will say,
I think of this as kind of like a spiritual sequel to the Endgame episode, where all of our watching was just determined by which TV shows had the episode title Endgame.
Endgame, yeah.
Check that one out if you like this. But yeah, so we're gonna find the patterns ourselves. This is going to be an exercise in constellation and connections. But there is something unique about reaching 100 episodes for all these shows, which is 100 is considered the magic number for syndication.
David, does that mean we can get syndicated on a major podcast network now?
We're already syndicated because web syndication through RSS feeds is actually really simple, and that's why you might be listening to this on Spotify or Castbox
iTunes or anything.
Anything. But we're originally on SoundCloud, if you didn't know that. So
shout out to SoundCloud.
But if there are any networks that want to pick us up,
looking at you, Max Fun, Radio Lab,
right, we'll be tweeting
Wondery,
at you soon. Expect to hear from our Twitter.
Yeah. Pick us up. We did it.
But before we jump into just like recapping some of these episodes, I thought it might be good to give people an idea of what syndication is and why 100 became the big number that everyone celebrates. Basically, syndication is when you take a show, usually a network show, and you kind of shop it around in reruns in what's called off-network syndication, and you can put it onto a cable network or screen in other countries or put it in a local TV station. But the point is just that there's a lot of time to fill on these local stations that they can't produce enough content to do so. So you would syndicate these big popular TV shows and show reruns or even new episodes, but just not on their original network.
Right.
The most common way that people would do this is to kind of fill out the week with something called strip syndication or daily syndication. So you would just do one episode a week in the same time slot, and you can tune in once a day to watch Law and Order or whatever.
On TBS. This is like the whole reason TBS exists.
Right. Well, it's the whole reason cable exists. So once cable happened, I mean, this totally exploded. But it was pretty big in the 60s and 70s as well, because independent stations stopped being required to have news departments. So they saw strip syndication as like a good replacement for that. Syndication rates are typically like 6 consecutive showings of a series in 3 to 5 years. So they're very lucrative, and they actually sometimes make up to like half of the profits on a given TV show.
I would believe that, because people like, it's why when Netflix and Hulu and all these streaming services started out, their big thing was you can come here to watch your favorite shows on demand. You don't have to wait for them on cable anymore. We've got them, you know, come for Friends, come
Exactly.
for Law and Order, whatever it is you watch, you know?
Yep.
That's like, that's the bonanza of syndication.
The bonanza. We'll get to that
Well,
later.
we'll get to the bonanza.
It's very often like a show that's being syndicated will have like a reduced runtime. So if you remember when they chopped up season 4 of Arrested Development into a bunch of shorter episodes, but more of them, that was supposed to be for syndication reasons, that you have to fit them into 20 minutes instead of 22 or even 30 minutes.
Right.
And you know, there's a lot of other types of deals that you can see, but they usually center around you need a lot of episodes to make a real profit. But in recent years, the 100 episode milestone has kind of been lowered. So even shows with like 50 episodes are considered viable for SVOD syndication, which is like Netflix and Hulu and whatever, that's streaming video on demand. And
did I read this wrong, or has the sort of new average is like 88 episodes or so?
Yeah, I mean, 88
like
was always
syndication?
like what you needed as like a minimum, because that's you know however
Basically
many
4
weeks
seasons.
with 4 episodes a week. You know, it's 4 seasons of 22 episodes, which is the standard.
Right.
So if you ever hear on a TV show somebody talking about like, hey, we've just hit 100.
Right.
Why is that significant? It's because it's you get the cash, you get the money, but it doesn't really matter anymore. Now it's just kind of a remnant.
It's like it's basically a participation trophy at this point. Like, woohoo, we made it to 100. We are already syndicated, but we did it. You know, like, we'll have a cake.
Yeah, you'll definitely find that. You can Google like any 100th episode for any show that reached 100 episodes, and there will be a big cast party where all the cast members gather around and slice a cake, and they do a press release. And so it usually gets a lot more viewership. So that's something that I think is going to play into a lot of these episodes is, you know, more people are going to be watching this episode than the one before or the one after it.
Right. And, you know, it's always a big part of the marketing around the show that the network does is, you know, they'll
one of the weird
have
things, though,
banners
is that
and whatnot.
The 100th episode is not always the 100th in terms of the episode order chronologically. Sometimes they go by the production order. Sometimes they go by the broadcast order. Sometimes they count specials. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they count 2-parters as one story. So we tried to the best we could go off of what the marketing around the episode was, but sometimes that stuff just doesn't exist especially for the older shows. Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes some of these might be wrong. We sort of just went off of, you know, what Wikipedia listed as the 100th aired episode. But there were several times.
TV Guide and all.
Right. Yeah. But again, there are several episodes that I watched more than 100 episodes, is all I'm going to say. Because I watched a lot of wrong episodes.
Same. But let's dive right in. What were some categories that you saw appearing in these many episodes? What were the most common trends?
Yeah, so like there's you know, like there's a ton of different ones of these. I would say the biggest one is gotta just be like wedding episodes, like a ridiculous number of these
involve weddings or proposals or engagements or something.
Yeah. Also, of course, you know, big guest stars, that's like a common one, and also sometimes just like an easy thing if you're in a you know, if you're in a rather serial show versus a more episodic show, which can like just like have a fun thing happen.
Which also plays into the you know, the scheduling thing, because if you've got to work your schedule around a big guest star coming, but you also have to work your schedule around making sure it's the 100th episode broadcast, it can cause some confusing information.
So, you know, there's big guest stars, a bunch of 2-parters. Some of these were clip shows. A lot of them were either celebrating, you know, the 100th anniversary of something, or, you know, like some other big round number kind of anniversary. You know, a lot of these have relationship shifts of some kind, usually.
In the sitcoms mainly.
In the sitcoms. then, you know, a bunch of them have flashbacks, or are like secret origin stories, or are reflecting, are very reflective over, you know, the usually about 5 seasons of show that they've done at that point.
Right. 5 years, 5 seasons.
Yeah,
Yeah. People get
yeah.
nostalgic.
You know, so then there's birthday and surprise parties, there's musical numbers, there's babies being born.
Yeah.
Another pretty big one is definitely like themes about death and mourning, and which I think is fascinating for like a show that's very celebratory, or you
Right.
know,
Well, it's
for
got to
like,
be reflective, but like being reflective doesn't always mean being celebratory. It's
right,
for a
yeah,
drama, being reflective means thinking back on all the people we've lost.
right, or you know, losing someone new and dealing with that, like that. This is a big
Right.
one, of course, for like dramas.
Yeah.
And occasionally some of the you know, like cop dramas.
I'm sure
um
that a lot of these are just kind of based on coincidence because we just watched so many shows that there had to be some weird overlaps.
right,
But you know, there's like a couple episodes with the same standard sitcom plots about like scoring a bunch of money and what do we do with
right.
the money.
Well, you know, like
um,
again, it's a big exciting thing that happens to them on the 100th
right.
episode, you know, like that kind of idea, I think.
Right, but they may not have even been thinking of it as a 100th episode.
It's
You know,
true.
sometimes these just are coincidentally the 100th.
Yeah. um a fun trend that also popped up in this was just Italian immigrants, or
Right.
like
Yeah, we'll get to
Italian
that and
family.
explain which shows happen to feature Italian immigrants.
Okay, pause the podcast
Good
now
representation.
and tweet at us which, or comment which shows do you think dealt with Italian immigrants. Uh, big, they've got big reveals. You know, some of them end in arrests. You know, maybe they're not celebrating a birthday, but they're celebrating a holiday of some kind. A bunch of
Right.
these involve travel, or you know,
Yeah,
big
big on,
accomplishments.
big shooting on location in like a fun place can be,
Yeah,
a good
yeah,
way to celebrate. Um,
totally. So yeah,
and
that's
without further ado, I kind of want to start with my favorite episode because I think it gets to a lot of these
yeah.
categories, which is 30 Rock's 100th episode special, which is just titled 100 Parts 1 and 2. And basically, it's got clip show elements, which, I mean, 30 Rock often does kind of flashback clip show things just as a cutaway gag. But here it's like the central thing because the cast of 30 Rock is shooting their 100th episode, so it's an anniversary.
Right.
And they've decided, or there's a massive gas leak that is making everybody nostalgic and a little bit intoxicated.
Pretty intoxicated, yeah. So you know, everyone's doing stupid stuff, and their show is about to be canceled if it doesn't impress.
Yeah, and if Tracy doesn't get
Doesn't
back
show
in
up.
time
Yeah.
because Tracy is worried about his reputation being too good after winning an Oscar that he can't go back to TV, and so then they go up to the roof of 30 Rock and try to shoot Kenneth the Page with a gun.
To
So
ruin
I
his
mean, it's pretty
reputation
dramatic.
again.
There's a ton of guest stars in this one. Michael Keaton plays a janitor it's his last day before retirement. He dies, which is death. There's a big relationship shift in that it's a Dennis episode. So Liz's ex-boyfriend Dennis shows up to take advantage of her during this gas leak.
Right, because she
There's even
accidentally
the
calls
return of the
him.
blue guy from the
Yeah,
episode where Tracy does Conan.
Rachel Dratch is back.
Yeah, well, she's always back, but
I know,
she's
but
back as the blue guy.
the blue guy.
So this is my favorite. It's my favorite show on this list. It's my favorite episode. I think it really feels like 100th episode special.
Totally. Should we talk about some other shows that, you know, are either very self-aware, or, you know, the 100th is somehow a part of the story?
Yeah, I think that's the let's get those out of the way first because they're the
Yeah,
most clear. This is what 100th episode is.
right. Well, actually, before we do that, I just want to make note of I wanted to keep track of a few things as we were sort of going through all of these. And I was trying to figure out, you know, you would think that the 100th episode is generally a pretty big deal, so that a lot of them would have like the 100 or 100th or something like that in the title. Only
Right.
13 out of 100 did. Like, that's a wildly low number compared to what I was expecting.
13%. I mean, like, that doesn't mean that that none of the other episodes were aware or self-aware of them being the 100th.
Right.
But all of these were 100% sure that they are the 100th episode is the good thing, as opposed to some of the other ones where we're a little hazy.
I'm not sure. Yeah. But yeah, let's talk about the ones where 100th is part of the story.
So here's one. Monk the episode is titled Mr. Monk's 100th Case, and it's his 100th case. So he's celebrating. He went on a talk show, which is hosted by Eric McCormick, Will from Will and Grace.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So guest star.
And so he has to resolve that case because he missed something. It's a classic something episode.
And then
at the
Chicago.
end of the episode,
go ahead.
They say like, "Oh, you solved your 101st case technically because that was
so
a different case."
now you can't retire.
Yeah, because he's Monk and he loves big round numbers.
Yep. I've never watched Monk before. That's true for a lot of these shows. I've just never watched it before.
Like Monk?
Your family is a big Monk family. Your family of monks.
Monkeys. Whatever you call fans of Monk.
Another one is Chicago Fire, another show that I have never watched before.
Right, it's another Dick Wolf project.
Yeah. This whatchamacallit? It's
about firemen.
It's about firemen. They do fireman stuff. One of them is like weird about his life, so he's kind of reflective, but also the like B plot of the episode somehow feels like it should have been like the A plot or something, where they own this bar that's turning 100 and so it's failing,
right? And
they
it's an Al Capone bar, for anybody who's lived in Chicago, every single bar in the city claims to be an Al Capone bar. It's ridiculous. I don't think any of them actually had Al Capone in them. It's just something you say to get people to come.
Right.
But apparently they managed to get themselves on the tour.
There you go. The official Al Capone tour,
which are real and are annoying.
Because it was published in the newspaper in the arts and leisure section, so it's official then that it's real. The middle, it's the like 100th anniversary of the town being there.
Right, yeah. The middle on ABC, you might know, is the least premise having show. It's literally the show about nothing. Even more so, I think.
Take that, Seinfeld.
Than Seinfeld. But yeah, this is their town's 100th anniversary festival, and so there's a subplot about picking the slogan for the town, and there's being in the parade float. So yeah, 100th. They're celebrating. And it's also kind of a reflective episode, right?
Yeah, because it's about how they were originally trying to get to Chicago. Or leave.
Because they got to go see that Al Capone bar.
Yeah. But, they end up staying where they are because of a supposedly lost gas cap, but then you find out it's not. And so, it's just like, they're very reflective and thankful that this is where they made their home. And
to grow up in middle America.
We love it,
is the dream.
Yeah. Frasier's storyline, it's celebrating his thousandth, excuse me.
Right, because obviously if he's recording a daily episode, like every day of the week, they're gonna have way more than 100 episodes by the time we reach the 100th episode of Frasier.
So they're like, let's just call it 1,000. Why not? So they
and it's all about him being really stuck up about it because he's Frasier.
It's Frasier. He wants a big
Niles
celebration.
Is really jealous.
Yeah, and they just aren't able to get to the celebration for him. But then when he finally gets there, he's such a good guy that he sits and listens to the cab driver tell him about his story.
His divorce. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that he's such a good person, but he's learned something about being humble. Niles. I can't do a good Kelsey Grammer, but Well, I mean, of course, you know that like Frasier didn't originate on Frasier, so now might be a good time to just bring up Cheers, which
Yeah,
is
this is a
not
weird
a
one.
100th episode special at all. It's just like
No,
any other
I
episode.
mean, it's got a big accomplishment or, a big status quo change in that Carla gets a house. She buys a house.
Great. It's
You
like a
know,
haunted house, and
it's
she and Cliff spend a night there.
they do, and they sort of bond and don't hate each other as much by the end of
Right.
it.
But I mean, you can tell that
And
like the Frasier people were much more proud of getting to 100 than the Cheers people. Maybe the Cheers people just
right,
knew that they had a hit, so they
yeah,
weren't worried about hitting 100. But Frasier was like,
right,
"We're a spin-off. Spin-offs don't always go to 100."
yeah.
Uh,
Plus, it's Frasier. Like that's the sort of shit Frasier the character cares about, as
okay,
evidenced
yeah.
by the episode. So like, of
You can't
course you
say
gotta
like we're
write an
serving
episode
our
about it.
10,000th drink or something.
Right, right. I mean, I honestly wouldn't put it past Cheers to do something stupid like that at some point. Our one
Well,
millionth drink. Um,
well, there's still more that are celebrating a 100th anniversary. ER
yeah,
is celebrating the 100th anniversary of their hospital by
yes,
having the first baby born in that hospital return as a 100-year-old woman.
yeah.
It's called
It's
Good
cute.
Luck Ruth Johnson.
She's fun. River Song gives
It's
a speech about medicine.
right. Well, if you don't know, Alex Kingston
Yeah,
got her not her start, but
start on
her
ER.
big breakout role was on ER,
Breakout. Yeah,
and she went on to play River Song in Doctor Who.
yes. But yeah, I
Castle.
have also, yeah, Castle. This one's, I don't know. How would you describe this one? Was it fun or not? I can't decide.
I mean, it was exactly what I assumed Castle would be like, if that helps. You know, Castle
So,
being kind of like a ripoff of
Murder
Murder
She
She
Wrote.
Wrote,
Yeah,
but with what's his name,
Nathan Fillion.
Nathan Fillion as the
Yeah,
dude, and then he falls in love with
the cop.
the cop, and they get married. So by this point, they've done the will they won't they part. That's done, thank
Yeah,
God.
they're
And
together.
so the whole episode is just a parody of Rear Window because Nathan Fillion's legs are broken. But it turns out, you tell it.
Okay, so he keeps trying to solve this crime, but like all the time, everyone's like, Castle, you're crazy. Castle, you're doing illegal things with forced time and money. Stop. You're harassing this guy. And so then finally, his partner, whose name I forget, goes over there and she's like, I'm going to prove to you that this is just a normal man. But then there's a struggle and the lights turn out. So he hobbles across the street and he
Right,
calls
like
all of
in the
his cop
climax to
friends.
Rear Window.
Yeah, and he calls all his cop friends and they walk in and it's a surprise party for his
Right, and they play
birthday.
it like at first they're gonna play it like he's gonna get mad, but he's like, "This is the greatest thing anyone's ever done for me."
Yeah,
And then they're like, "So this is how we celebrate our 100th case together." So it's a 100th case and it's a birthday, a
yeah.
surprise party.
They really
Um,
stuck a bunch of shit in there.
yeah, let's do more surprise parties. There's a surprise
Yeah.
party in Seventh Heaven.
Yeah.
Explain the premise of Seventh Heaven.
So there's a preacher who's got a lot of kids and they're super moralistic about everything, but then there's also like
Well, because he's a
soapy
preacher.
drama and stuff. And so
Right.
like that's it. That's
And
something.
then
It's
Jessica
like if Sweeney
Biel
needs
jumps on a plane and goes home, and the dad is so mad because he's like, Jessica Biel, you ran away from your grandmother's house where you were staying, and
I think
then
she's
she's
like
like,
at college, like she's like the kind of the trouble child or something,
right,
and then like she had finally gotten her act together and was like at college or like doing something, staying with this other family out somewhere else. And he finds out that she's coming home, and meanwhile everyone else is like running around and like figuring out how easy or hard it is to be their dad. Mostly it's so hard. But then one girl is like, I'll get to that. So basically, he thinks it's like her ex-boyfriend or this dude they're fostering in the house.
he threatens to punch the guy out. He's
Yeah,
like, you're trying to steal my daughter away from me, but it
and like
turns out No, she was just coming home because it's his birthday, and he forgot that it was his birthday.
Oh, because he's just so selfless. God. And then basically they not only the family throws him a surprise party, but then there's like
The
a
whole town.
church-wide, the whole church comes and he like goes around and just shakes everyone's hand and like pats
And the
women
band
on the
plays the theme
head.
song.
Oh my God, the band plays the theme song. It's wild.
This is the worst theme song
Also,
I've ever heard. No offense to the band. I'm sure they tried their best.
I don't hate it. But it's fine. What do you call it? But the one daughter who's still in the house, she's like, Dad, I've decided what I want to do with my life. I want to be a preacher just like you.
Yeah.
She like helps like mom like talk to her son about wanting like blaming herself for their husband's suicide or something. Like it's all very convoluted and strange.
Right. Well, it's standard like soap opera drama, schmaltzy stuff.
Yeah.
But like the main point of why it's on this list is because it's titled 100, and it's it's a big surprise birthday party where they play the theme song.
Yeah. It's great. So it's very self-aware.
Right. One more surprise party. The Jeffersons, famous spin-off of All in the Family. And this one's titled Louise's Sister, and it's about, Mrs. Jefferson, her long-lost sister shows up at a surprise party, and there's drama.
Yeah, it's not even a surprise birthday party, though. I think it's just a surprise party for the sister, but they try to disguise it as, like, the maid's birthday.
Or as her anniversary of working for them or something. But,
yeah.
Whatever. It's a surprise party.
It's a surprise party, yeah. What's interesting, though, is we have this, which is Louise's birthday, and
Louise's sister is the name of the episode.
Louise's sister, sorry. And then Malcolm in the Middle has Lois's sister as its 100th episode.
And they're both season 5, episode 13.
It's just like,
these
what
two
are the
shows
chances?
Separated by decades.
And content, like very different from each
very
other.
much content.
Though I will say I enjoyed The Jeffersons. I think of all the like old sitcoms, that one might have been my favorite.
Oh yeah, it was very fun.
I found myself genuinely laughing as opposed to some of the other ones where I'm like, why did anyone ever watch this?
Well, I really like Malcolm in the Middle.
I also like Malcolm in the Middle.
And this one's great. It's got another guest star. It's the sister from or sister-in-law from Roseanne.
Yes.
And she's playing Lois's sister. Who they don't really get along. They fight. They have sibling rivalry to the point of ridiculousness because she needs a kidney transplant or she's going to die, and she refuses to tell Lois that she is having this medical issue.
Okay,
then Lois is gonna win, and she's gonna be the savior all over.
Right, she'll always just hold this kidney over her.
Right, I think that's a pretty, high stakes premise for 100th episode.
For sure. I will say though, this doctor that she's seeing should be sued for malpractice like immediately. He breaks HIPAA like so many times and schedules her for a fucking like kidney transplant.
I mean, they point that out in the show.
Yeah, but then they just do it. It's like very strange. Like
it's like they sound alike
like
on the phone is the point, and so
right.
So like,
but she shows up at the hospital.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, ready for surgery? And she's like, what are you talking about? And then Lois reveals it all. But it's just like, you gotta prep for that sort of shit. I don't know.
Right. But what I always like about Malcolm in the Middle is that it can juggle, crazy comedy, cartoonish comedy with heart. And there's a big speech about sisterhood, and it all wraps up nicely.
Yeah.
You guys should all check out Malcolm in the Middle. I love it.
It's great. Speaking of Lois, the worst
There's
show,
more Lois.
Family Guy. Woohoo.
Lois Griffin, and she gets kill in this one.
Stewie kills Lois, and then we get the 2-parter follow-up. Lois kills Stewie. This is the one. This
was a big event. First of all, Family Guy had gotten canceled after season 3. And because of syndication, because syndication is magic, all the episodes that have been shown on Cartoon Network reinvigorated interest in the show, and the DVDs sold so well that they were like, we gotta bring this guy back in and do more Family Guy.
I'm so sad that happened, but here we are.
Thanks, Adult Swim. But anyway, in any case, it did come back, and it ran for 1 million more seasons.
Yeah.
We're up to season 18 now, I think.
I can't believe it. I'm so sad.
But this was anyway, the big 100th episode, so they had interviews, they had behind the scenes, they had all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Do we feel the need to say more about this episode?
Stewie kills Lois, but it's a pretty big letdown because, and they point this out in the show because very meta, that it was all a simulation.
Right.
And it's not a dream, it's a simulation, so you can't say it's like Wizard of Oz, but still kind of a letdown. But Seth MacFarlane would go on to create more letdowns for us,
so many more, including American Dad. Oh no!
Which also reached 100 episodes a long ass time ago.
It has 17 episodes or seasons of this nonsense. I cannot believe.
Right. So this one was also kind of a special because they had a counter at the bottom of the screen that said
100 characters will die.
Right, but of course, like 99 characters just die in a bus crash, and then the last character to die is like a one-off character from a long time ago.
Yeah.
Someday we're gonna have to like research like where does that originate from? The big event where they tell you a character is gonna die.
Yeah.
The Simpsons definitely did it. That was a big one, but like where does that originate?
For sure. This one is about his daughter runs off with like the pothead dude, and
they've been dating for several seasons.
They're gonna get married, and then he puts out like a reward for stopping the wedding, and so the stoner boyfriend they try to run away, don't they, with the money?
Yeah, there's a big joke where the fiance is like, I'm no good for your daughter. Just give me the money and I'll ruin the wedding by leaving with the money. Yeah. And then it turns out that was part of a trick.
Plan.
Both running away with the money and eloping.
Yeah. So there's a wedding in that one. Which brings us to the
weddings. The wedding episodes.
Yeah. All of the wedding episodes. Let's kick it off with Gilmore Girls. This is like the end of a big arc where Lorelai, the mom, her parents are renewing their vows and have come back together after some time being separated. It's got a lot of relationship drama with Lorelai and Luke, and it's got a bunch of relationship drama with Rory and Logan and all that,
and a bunch of jokes about high class culture, fancy people at parties, and poor people who are also invited to the parties now because Gilmore Girls, they're inviting people to weddings now.
So this one again, lots of big relationship shifts, drunk dads.
And it's just a good encapsulation of the show as a whole. So it feels like a perfect celebration for 100.
For sure. Then we've got One Tree Hill, which is incomprehensible if you've not watched the show before, as I haven't.
I mean, it's one of these soap opera type things. But this is the big wedding one, just titled 100.
Yep.
Where two characters are getting married, but they're not sure because they're in love with other people, and there's a bunch of flashbacks.
It's the dumbest thing because they're like, I can't marry you because you wrote this story about your old girlfriend. He's like, I didn't.
It's the classic. I'm a writer, so my soul is in the book.
Right.
So when somebody reads the book, they just start crying.
Right. And she's like, what are you talking about? This is clearly you're in love with your ex-girlfriend. He's like, but
she's
I'm
the
not.
comet in the book about the boy and the comet.
she leaves him, and it's super weird. And this one has one of the like imagine standing up at the wedding and objecting sort of tropes.
Oh yeah, it turns
It's
out that it
imaginary.
was all in her
Yeah.
imagination that she stood up and said, "You can't marry her because you fixed my car and you fixed my heart." And then the dad who murdered the uncle comes back, and it seems like he had kidnapped uh, the one of the brother's sons, but it turns out that it was a totally different character who kidnapped him, and the dad was actually saving him, and it ends on a cliffhanger of just this murderer walking into the house and being like, "Hey guy."
Oh my gosh.
Um,
Yeah, it's so weird. Then we've got Jane the Virgin, and we included this one because it's one of the I think kind
Only
of
shows that
rare
ends on
ends.
100.
Yeah, it ends. Its final episode of its 5th season is the 100th episode, and they actually went so far to make sure that that happened because they just did a cast like interview, like retrospective episode right before this. So they're like, no, we got to end on chapter 100. And this is of course the big resolution with Jane. I won't spoil it. Marrying the guy.
The
Um,
guy.
the guy.
but
You don't
but
know
she
which
does it
guy.
because all telenovelas end.
And with a wedding, very self-aware of the tropes that it's working with,
Right. And
and
of course everything goes wrong with the wedding, but it's perfect at the
right,
same time.
and yeah, exactly. And it's we get a big reveal of who the narrator has been this whole time. We get a like all the characters get nice little conclusions to their arcs and stories, and it's very nice. Then we've got
Yep.
Grey's Anatomy, and this is
Which
the one where
also has a wedding, but it's a weird twist surprise wedding.
it's so Grey's Anatomy. It truly is. This is like season 5 of the show, so like I
You
think
guys
I had
remember this
stopped
episode? It's
watching.
called "What a Difference a Day Makes." Do you guys
It's so
remember?
this one's narrated not by Meredith Grey, but by Izzy, played by Katherine Heigl.
Right.
And she's been planning Meredith's wedding, but now she's dying again from cancer. So they give her the wedding as a surprise.
Right.
And Meredith and the McDreamy are like, we'll get married in secret sometime. We that's too much fuss for us. Yuck. Um, and yeah, that's basically the episode.
That's the episode.
There's some
Will and
hallucinations due to
Grace.
cancer. Sorry.
Right. Cancer. Hallucinations and cancer.
Yeah.
Will and Grace is another big wedding episode called "Marry Me a Little, Marry Me a Little More,"
Yeah.
because Grace gets married to her like new boyfriend who has like just been introduced on the show on
Yeah.
national television because Katie Couric, guest star, tells them to.
Yep. It's very weird. And then, at first, Will is like very upset that
He didn't get to go to the wedding.
he didn't get to go to the wedding because at the time gay marriage was not like possible. So it was
That's not
still.
why he wasn't invited to the wedding. It was because it was impromptu and on
No, that's not why he
MTV.
wasn't. No, he was so hurt about her wedding because he
Oh,
couldn't have his own because
I
gay
see.
marriage
Yeah.
was not yet legal.
Right, because Grace's wedding is supposed to be his day too to
Yeah.
celebrate.
Yeah.
So then they just have another wedding, but then that one
Yeah.
gets called off because of runaway bride. So then they have a third wedding.
Yeah.
Most weddings
It's very
per
wild.
two-parter.
Truly. Also of note, Katie Couric somehow made 2 guest star appearances. Like, I don't
Right.
think any of the other guest stars are on this list more than once. But Katie Couric just racking them up. She was also on the 100th episode of Murphy Brown, which was Murphy's big baby shower. And so
Right.
we just get like a ton of famous female news anchors from the time kind of coming on as guest stars and giving her presents and whatnot.
Right.
Celebration, hooray.
Celebration, and also the troubles of being a single mother, having it all,
Right. A
classic.
single, right. Like a single mother and a working mother.
Right.
So yeah. Then in the proposal category, we've got MASH.
Right.
Um,
The episode Margaret's engagement. She gets engaged and then gets sexually harassed
yeah, it's not fun.
because
Um,
she's engaged,
yeah,
and
a
terrible,
guy is
terrible things
crazy.
ensue.
Yeah. Then the Donna Reed show.
Sort of classic, late 50s sitcom,
Yeah.
just about a family.
Yeah, she her
Aunt Belle.
aunt-in-law, yeah, her husband's aunt comes to town and she's like, "Oh, reminiscing." And then
I left
she
town because I fell out
was
of love with an old
scorned.
flame.
He wouldn't take me to the dance.
Right.
So she falls in love with this guy who turns out to be the guy who's blocking the building of a new children's clinic for the hospital that the dad works at. But then it's a happy ending. They're able to build the clinic, and
Right.
they
And they
fall in love and
rekindle their
propose.
lost love from when they were
Yes.
young by re-exchanging their engagement earrings.
Yeah.
The episode's called Aunt Belle's Earrings.
Earrings.
And so just having a random aunt character that we've never seen before come in and get engaged and get married, like, all right, I'll take it for 100th episode. But the strange thing is that our next show on this list did almost the exact same plot, the Andy
Right.
Griffith Show.
Yeah, also a classic, like 60s family show.
Yeah,
There's
it's
like a
Aunt
a
B gets
local
declared for.
yeah, there's like a local, I don't know,
Crazy guy.
a crazy guy. I don't know how to describe him.
He's in a family band, like a
Yeah.
jug band, with
There's some nice,
kind of awful sons.
yeah, I don't know. There's some nice music, but
There's excessive music. This episode is
it's,
so devoid of plot, jokes,
yeah,
character,
yeah, there's
because there's just
nothing
two
here.
giant songs. But
Um,
maybe these people are real musicians. I don't know.
Yeah, but basically he kidnaps Andy Griffith's mother, I guess, and it's like, you gotta marry me. And to get out of it, she basically nags him to death and tricks him into going, yuck, I don't want this lady, get her out of here. And then she's like, I'm free. And it's very weird.
Um,
Um,
Another show that we watched
Two
is still
shows
with the
starring Andy
cast of
Griffith.
the Andy Griffith Show, because they all went on to be, well, not all of them. Obviously, some
But a
of them
lot.
were dead. But Andy Griffith and Don Knotts went on to be in Matlock,
Yep.
your grandpa's favorite show.
This, it's a classic kind of
Courtroom
detective-y
procedural.
courtroom procedural, where this one is there are two identical brothers and one of them
Right.
kills a lady, but who killed her? The answer is both of them. They were in cahoots. The end.
Right. Well, I mean, it's interesting because this plot point was also used in Better Call Saul a couple seasons ago. But the point was that the case gets practically thrown out of court because Jimmy, Saul he replaces his defendant with a lookalike in order to throw off the person who gave the eyewitness who said, that's the guy, I saw him. But here Matlock is doing the same thing, but it's not thrown out of court, which I thought
Right.
was weird. It's very unrealistic as a courtroom.
Yeah, it's weird. Then to continue on with some proposals, there's Bonanza, another classic Western.
Right.
This one is about sort of like a miracle healer who is gonna heal one of the characters,
Yeah, this
this
sick
girl,
lady
and
who,
who's rich. And so,
yeah,
they think they're just trying to steal her riches, which they are at first, but then he genuinely loves her,
right.
and
It's
genuinely
kind of
wants to
like, I don't
heal
know if any
her.
of you have seen the movie. It's like a classic movie, The Night of the Hunter. Uh,
I
has
haven't
kind of
seen
a
it.
similar plot, except for it turns out the guy is a fake preacher and is a murderer and just starts killing people. But this one, it's a happy ending
Yeah, well,
because,
sort of. It's bittersweet. He leaves and is like, I'll come back to you when I've earned your love.
yeah,
And then the other guy who is pining after the lady is kind of like, but I
You
was.
had the power in you all along to walk, and so she
Yeah,
does.
she does. So she does. In Rawhide, yeah,
Yeah!
get him up, get him on.
Rolling.
Yeah, this one is a wild plot. There's a bunch of ladies who are coming west to marry a bunch of dudes in a town, but then they get kidnapped by the people who are taking them out there to like.
Right. It's like a mail order bride kind of
Yeah,
service, which,
yeah,
happened, but it was obviously a front for, human trafficking.
yeah.
But then
And
our good old boys, led by Clint
Clint
Eastwood and his
Eastwood.
friend, they come and save everybody, and then they all get
Yeah,
married to their real husbands, like they should.
like they should.
I mean, like,
Um,
obviously, if this episode was made today, it would end with them, like, forming some kind of feminist collective out in the
right,
West.
right.
But it was the 60s. The best you could hope for as a woman in a 60s TV show is to get married to a guy who isn't a total
Douchebag.
monster.
Yeah. Yeah, so then we have Smallville, and this one, this one's weird because it's got a big reveal and a proposal, but both of those things get retconned out of it in this episode.
Right. It's a time travel episode, guys. We've
Kind of,
introduced
yeah.
time travel into Smallville, and so everything goes to shit.
Yeah. Basically, so the girlfriend he just proposed to after revealing his secret dies in like a car crash. And so he tries to go back in time, but the car crash almost happens anyway. And
Right.
then
He's not very good at this whole time travel thing.
No, he's very bad at it. And then his dad dies instead, because the
Right.
universe
So
demands
that's
justice
permanent,
or something.
his dad being dead.
Yeah.
With a
Right
few
after he
exceptions
wins,
later on in the show.
right after he wins a Senate position. Oh, darn. Anyway, Boy Meets World, it's a Christmas episode with promise rings, and it's about learning to deal with your partner's weirdness. But I hate this
Right.
resolution because they don't actually talk about dealing with each other's weirdness and blending the traditions. They're just like, I love you anyway.
No, they kind of address it. I don't know.
Not enough. It's fine.
Watch for yourself and decide. The point is, this definitely plays into, if you go back to our Christmas special episode, where we talked about every Christmas special episode is just based on a Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
This one is as well. There's literally a Christmas Carol interlude about, about the boy seeing the future and being like, oh no, this is what will happen if I don't be
Corey.
friends.
Oh,
Corey, if I don't
dummy.
listen to my future wife.
Yeah. Anyway, which is again a dumb moral. You should talk to your partner and not and be willing to compromise on both sides. Anyway, Modern Family. This one sort of loosely fits in. Cam's
sister gets proposed to, and there's drama that ensues. Yeah, because Cam is sensitive.
Yeah, this one did not feel particularly 100-y. It just sort of felt like an episode that happened to be the 100th for Modern Family.
It happens.
It happens.
And then we've got Jag. Hey, you guys ever heard about Jag?
I've heard of it.
Well, I'm sure you guys have heard of NCIS, and the showrunner and creator of NCIS had produced another show before that, Jag, which had all the same character archetypes, like a cool Navy guy, and like a girl Navy guy, and like a dorky Navy guy, and then like an older Navy guy who's like in charge. All the same characters, but these guys are more judges. They're
right.
What does JAG stand for? I should find out.
Stands for something.
JAG, well, of course, it stands for Judge Advocate General. So unlike NCIS, which is about the detectives involved with Navy crimes, JAG is about the judges of Navy crimes. So in this episode, Boomerang, they go to Australia. Mate.
It's a big budget travel episode to celebrate 100. Give the cast and crew a vacation while they work.
But the reason we're including it here is because it's also a proposal episode. One of the Aussies gets the hots for the girl Jag.
The girl
What they call
Jag.
her. And she also goes topless on the topless beach, and it's very
Ooh.
whoa, but they don't show it because
Because
whoa.
it's TV.
And then it turns out she was never actually topless. She just had a book over her chest.
Womp, womp.
That's the big twist in this one.
Cool.
But yeah, she gets proposed to, and it's left hanging whether she will one day return to Australia. I don't know what happened to that. I haven't watched the rest of Jag, but I do know that in one episode they have a sort of backdoor pilot, and that's where NCIS was born.
The horror, the monster.
We did watch the 100th episode of NCIS. Do you want to talk about it?
We did. This one's insane. They go on a ship. It's like a ghost ship or something.
The ghost ship.
But it's just Russians, and it's like nuclear bombs. It's a Scooby-Doo mystery
where it turns out they were just trying to scare them off the boat to protect their pirates' gold.
Yeah, but it's the Russians. It's and the gold
and it's a
is
nuclear
a
bomb instead of pirates' gold.
Yeah. And then they get off the. This is the craziest part. They get off the boat just before it gets blown up by rocket launch, like rockets and missiles.
You know,
and they're like,
they get a scrape just in time.
How did they know we were?
Now, why is this episode called Chimera?
Chimera?
However you pronounce it.
Because that was the project name.
Oh, okay.
It was
lame.
Project Chimera, yeah.
It's kind of a lame 100th episode. Whatever.
Yeah.
Not nearly as cool as the NCIS spin-off show, NCIS Los Angeles.
This one is definitely
Reznikov, N, and it's the dad of Reznikov, and he gets shot.
So we're getting to the point. Yeah. Okay. We're getting to the point where we're just talking about procedurals. So I just want to like rank these in like number of like most horrible cops to less horrible cops. And NCIS Los Angeles is definitely close to the top of the list. This guy just like
he's a cop
murders tons of people and like endangers so many lives and just gets like zero repercussions for it and like disobeys like direct chain of command orders from his superior and just like is absolutely one of the worst like just rogue cops I've seen in a while.
Just for comparison, the Jags do get in a punch fight with some other judges. So I don't know if that makes them worse. Probably not. But they do get into random punching fights like at the courthouse with Australian judges over petty shit. Anything else to say about NCIS LA?
It's bad.
Or Ncis Los, as I call it. Next up, we've got Criminal Minds in our procedural rundown. How do they rank as far
This one's called 100. This one's not great either. This one's about a serial killer who's targeting his family.
The Reaper.
This is it's so bad. And so this is a big conclusion to that arc because they finally catch him, but not before he kills his wife while his child hides in a drawer somewhere. It's like this one in particular is just like, God, TV hates women because they give her like this emotional speech on the phone to him before she gets shot in the head where she's like, you're the best and I love you. Not like, fuck you for putting me in this situation.
Yeah,
like,
it's interesting. She gets fridged, but it's the kid he's not in a fridge. He's in like a
drawer. He gets shoved in a drawer, but he shoves himself in a drawer. So.
All right. Well, but she gets fridged, basically.
He does.
But this one, it's all about how this cop is a cop on the edge, and how it's done like a framed narrative where all of his teammates are being interviewed about what went wrong here. Why is there a woman dead?
Right. But then at the end,
the wife
she's
of
like,
a cop, no less.
Right. But then she's like, the investigator's like, you did nothing wrong. You did everything you could, and have fun with your son. Bye.
Have fun.
like,
bye.
It's just, it's not great. CSI crime scene investigators, just like major trigger warning for just horrible transphobia and like violence.
I mean, it's a
against
very
trans people.
2006 kind of
Ugh.
mindset of
Like, you
about
can tell they're
trans people.
trying, but they truly have no fucking idea what they're talking
Well,
about.
they treat it like, I don't know, it's like, imagine that you did a CSI episode about like a BDSM cult or something where somebody
Right.
died, and they'd be like talking about like, oh, so you're telling me these guys like getting hit? So I better not punish. Maybe I can punish them by not punishing them. Am I right?
Right.
Like, there's a lot of like just jokey puns about trans people where they're like,
Yeah.
I got the patient's blood. Is it male blood or female blood?
But that's not even like considered a joke. That's like the literal
It's played in a
science they
jokey way, I
use.
think.
I don't know. They use that as like but this blood was male.
There's like a one
It's
joke
like,
where it's like, I think of human beings like oysters, Some of them can just switch genders, all right? And it's like, that's not what being transgender means. That's not what human biology is.
right.
Please stop making jokes like,
No,
hey,
I
it's
feel
all
like
oysters to me, ladies.
yeah. Well, the worst part about this to me is that they somehow managed to make the death of a trans woman the fault of another trans woman. And
Right.
I'm just like,
Specifically a trans woman who is a fake trans surgeon, like back
yeah,
alley surgeon.
yeah,
It's all terrible. There's nothing good about it. Like, I don't know. It's one thing also that like every person trans represented is a trans woman who works in like a strip club or is a sex worker or something.
right.
And then like and like so many of them die. It's
Yeah.
total barrier gaze. Like I don't know. There's nothing redeeming about this episode.
Also, they have the wife of from Grey's Anatomy who got her own spin-off show, Private Practice. I forget the actress's name, but she plays one of the trans women, and it's like, stop.
Yeah, right.
Stop it.
They did have mostly cis women playing.
Yeah, when they wanted a trans woman to quote unquote pass, and it's bad. CSI Miami, this is a shit show, but it's like an enjoyable shit show. Like,
CSI
every
Miami
part
is
of
probably a good show. I'm willing to go out on a limb and say that it's probably good.
No, it's not good. It's maybe enjoyable, but it's not good.
That's what TV's for, Hannah.
Okay.
This is an episode about death pools. Like celebrity death pools. They're making a TV show about it soon with like Ken Jeong and some people.
Oh my god.
Anyway, like this is a real thing where people bet on when celebrities are going to die, and they can make big bucks with it.
A celebrity dies in a pool. It's a death pool. Get it? But then this is called Death Pool 100 because it turns out the people who are running the death pool on like an illegal gambling ship just off of the coast in international waters, run by a Korean dude.
It's legal to do a death pool
here. And then they are counterfeiting $100. They're counterfeiting the payouts, basically.
Yeah, and they're $100 bills.
But they're super bills. They're super bills, David.
They're super bills, but they're still not perfect. And somebody's like, some people think...
No,
some people think it's easy to make 100.
This is at the very end, after they have finished solving all of the cases where all of the bad people are people of color.
Right.
Including the guy who was robbed at the beginning of the episode. No, it turns out he hired people to rob.
Bad person.
It's nonsense.
But some people think it's easy to make 100, but we know better.
Or someone says something like that, and then fucking what's his face puts on his glasses and go, "It's not easy to make 100." And then we get this sting, and they play like this dramatic music, and then the horrible Miami CSI Miami like editing starts coming in and out where they just zoom in on someone's face. It's CSI Miami might have been one of my favorites just for how literally insane I felt.
It's great. I think it might be a good show. I'm willing to check out other episodes in the future. CSI New York, not so much. Not so much. Nothing going on here.
Yeah. There's a bunch of guys named Mac Taylor, including one of the cops, and they have to figure out what happened, and it's a guy seeking revenge. And it's sad.
How many Mac Taylors are there in New York? There's 6.
Yeah, let's talk
who
about
own
the
a
coffee.
car, who live in this neighborhood. Like, it's all about
Yeah,
narrowing down.
yeah. At least there was like
Google
actual
search
detective
places where you
work.
can just find out every person with a first and last name in a city. Where is that? That sounds
I
not
mean,
great.
the DMV question mark,
Oh,
like,
all right, maybe. Yeah.
or like, IDs. Anyway, Blue Bloods, the most propaganda show of them all.
Right, but we all know this. I mean, Blue Bloods was like written by a cop, by a former cop, and he's a very successful showrunner, executive producer type, because he brings authenticity to the game, and he also brings Tom Selleck to the game, and people
Yeah,
like that, I guess. I don't
yeah.
see the appeal of Blue Bloods, but I'm sure that it fits some people's
It's for
MO.
people who love cops, David.
This one's about Banksy.
Yeah, sort of. It's weird. There's like two plots going on. There's a bank robbery done by a bunch of Marines, we find out. And he's like, okay, you got to turn yourself in, but I'll go easy on you because you're Marines and
Because
don't
you're
do it
Marines and you were
again.
doing it because the government doesn't care about Marines. I mean,
And
there's a real problem with
veterans.
veterans hospitals being totally underfunded and there being absolutely no help for like the PTSD and the
Hmm.
all of the actual injuries sustained and the long-term health problems. But they just kind of wrap it all up in like sometimes the government doesn't do what you want, but you still got to follow the laws,
Yeah.
even though it's a
Um,
victimless crime to rob a bank that's insured.
yeah. Anyway, so there's that plot, and then there's like a suspicious like package alert, and they deploy the bomb squad, and it turns out it's a Banksy art installation, where it's
Right.
like,
And then there's a whole debate
see
about the
see
First
something,
Amendment.
see something, make something, baby.
The
uh
First Amendment says art can be art, but it also says you can't say fire in a crowded theater. So debate now. And it's like,
yeah,
this is not
there's
what Banksy does.
no.
This is not good
Also,
commentary on Banksy.
he's called Spanky in the show,
Right.
and they catch him at the end. They catch him
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's like it's not even on screen. They just catch him.
Yep. They just catch
And
him.
it's dumb. Anyway, NYPD Blue.
I
I
really
like this
like this
one.
show. I
Oh
think that
God,
this is
this is
like
the most New
quality
York cop
procedural.
show.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's just so New York. It's glorious. Um, you know, its showrunner got his start and created Hill Street Blues, which is like the origin of the cop procedural in its modern incarnation.
Hmm.
Um, but like it introduced the idea of just having like a cast of characters who go around the city solving crimes like a real police department. It's not always like a big dramatic crime of the week. It's just what's going on in the neighborhood today.
Right.
And NYPD Blue introduced more kind of soap opera elements as well, but those aren't really present in this one. It's just called
Oh,
A Box
I
of
mean,
Wendy.
yeah, because they find a girl. I
Find a
just
girl in a box.
they find a girl in a box, and I swear to God, y'all just have to watch like the first 5 minutes of this episode because it's just a bunch of New Yorkers going, "Well, I saw the box, and I was like, that's some nice wood. I'll take the wood and I'll go home." But then it smelled, so I was like, "Nah, this is a trash box." And
Hey, you can't
eventually,
pin this death on me, you stupid pigs. I'm
yeah,
a I'm a New Yorker.
yeah, it's just so New York. And then they like, it turns out it's like the girl's brother, and they bring him in for questioning. He's like, "No, I won't talk. Get me a soda." And they keep getting him the wrong soda, and then
Yeah, the
eventually
point
they
is
get
he's like
him.
a crazy guy, yeah, but it's like a really good performance. I actually I really dig it.
This is a crazy guy who definitely killed his sister and nailed her up in a box, and
Right.
ignores his ailing mother.
And then it also turns out that like people thought that he was acting crazy because he was traumatized from childhood when his brother drowned, but he actually drowned his
Killed his
brother
brother. Yeah, I mean, we
too.
could see
So
that one coming a mile away. Um,
sure, but you know, it's just a good performance. It doesn't have to be more than it is. That's what I like about NYPD Blue. Is it doesn't try to be anything bigger than just
right.
the day to day of cops in New York.
Yeah, there's a pregnancy subplot and a child abuse subplot.
Yeah,
And I think it's
and
handled
then there's
okay.
also what I think is interesting, like a character who gets accidentally shot by his friend and killed, and then the parents forgive the kid, but the police arrest the wrong guy. So the parents come forward to tell them, we know this guy didn't do it because we know this other guy confessed to us, but we don't want to press charges. And then the cops are like, that's not a thing.
That's not how murder works.
Yeah. And I think it's like this kind of beautiful, tragic thing.
I mean, like, that's a big thing, in cities. Like that's a real thing that happens,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I think NYPD Blue kind of stands apart from the pack as being like a more nuanced take. It's still propaganda, but
yeah.
I mean,
Slightly
I think it's
more
less
grounded.
Harmful than, for example, Blue Bloods. If we're talking blue shows, NYPD Blue is more tame.
Is less blue than one might imagine. Then we've got Perry Mason. Can you talk about this
moving
one?
into more of the law, procedurals, the courtroom procedurals.
It's okay.
Perry Mason, this one is really stupid. It just kind of meanders around. There's a person who's killed in like a makeup factory, but she had taken the lavender lipstick and written letters on the bottom of a desk.
How like stupid Sherlock Holmesy.
It's exactly like that scene in Sherlock Holmes, because the letters that they wrote were like N-A, but the N, the A, what if they were trying to write N, but they accidentally smudged it and didn't finish it before they died, so it looked like an A. And they're like, it was Ned Nelson. And then that's how the courtroom scene ends.
Yeah.
Oh
my God.
Perry Mason, they're making a reboot of that now, so I don't know, maybe that will be more clever and less cliche in their cases. But
who knows?
Good luck, HBO. We've got also a procedural called Hunter. Had you heard of this one before? I never saw Hunter.
Nope, I never heard of or seen this before. What were the years on this one? The 80s? It feels very 80s. Yeah. It's the 80s to the early 90s.
And they were trying to tackle social problems with their cop procedurals.
Yeah, so this one is supposed to be about like a mentally ill girl who's also sort of low-key being abused at home, and like she gets forced into committing a murder by taking the wrong psychiatric drugs by this one guy. It's very convoluted. And it's very strange.
There's monkeys that screech at the end.
Also, a lot of people just get shot straight up in this episode. A lot of just bad cop murder. A lot of guns. Murder.
Cop murder.
It's
kind of forgettable episode. I don't know. Hunter ran for 7 seasons somehow. You can make anything in the 80s.
Yeah, this was season 5 of that. Most of these episodes fall usually in season 5, though there's some outliers in either season 3 or season 6. I think technically Futurama. I'm pretty sure Futurama is the only one in season 7 because of its weird uncancel stuff.
Cancel and cancel.
Now we're into the
Law and Order. Let's talk about the 3 Law and Orders we got on this list.
So we've got Law and Order SVU, and Law and Order Criminal Intent. So the first law, the regular brand Law and Order. God, what is this one even about? I forget. I've watched
This is the abortion one. It's an abortion an abortion doctor gets murdered, and there's a whole thing about
where Richard Gilmore is a abortion cult leader.
If abortion is murder, then killing to protect a fetus is legitimate, and it's like that would just be chaos.
Right.
So I think this episode gives way too much like credit to the other side of that argument. Just for the sake of drama,
Right.
And it turns out that it was a preacher who was like sending his people out to do killings for him, and they get him on a technicality because like they say, oh, well, you're too much of a coward to kill yourself because you know that killing is wrong. No matter what.
Right.
So I don't
know. You get other
it's
people to kill for you. It's very strange.
It's it's a weak argument, which I don't think is typical of Law and Order, but this one's a weak one, trying to tackle a big social issue.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe this one was ripped from the headlines. Maybe that's why it was kind of lame. Maybe this one's real.
SVU is a wild one. This
they
one
all are. I mean, you guys have heard the Mulaney bit about SVU, right?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, this one feels like it was written to, like, fuel people who are scared of, like, globalists, you know, because, like, it's
you're mixing it up. SVU didn't have globalists in it.
Didn't it?
SVU was about the crazy guy who kept people as pets and made them marry him and kiss his feet.
Right, but they find him in the tunnels underneath a synagogue, and he donated a bunch of money to, like, a synagogue.
Oh, right. I didn't know. I forgot about the synagogue thing. I guess
it was very weird. I was like, okay.
Because I was thinking, if you're going to talk about, like, globalists, I think that's way more in Law and Order: Criminal Intent. Slither, which was about the guy from Logan's Run, is like a millionaire who, like, steals women and has them do plastic surgery to look like his ideal woman.
Oh my God.
He, like, kills people who write bad books about him. Also, like, strangely enough, the guy from, like, A Serious Man, you know, the star of that movie, is, like, a random guest star. I guess, like, this was before he was a big name.
There you go.
Right.
But yeah, this one is, you know, a lot of backstory on what's her face, the main lady in SVU, whose name I don't know.
Right. I just think, like, the difference between Law and Order and Law and Order SVU is so palpable in these two episodes.
Yeah.
Because Law and Order is just, like, a very, like, you know, we're gonna talk about this topic and we're not gonna blink, all right? And then Law and Order SVU is like, and the murderer, is she in this room? Yes, it's that main character policewoman who was the person who found the body. And it's like, did you kill him? No, I didn't kill him, but I was responsible for his death because I turned away that girl with the unbelievable story.
Right, and my mother has a rape backstory, but I blamed her because she was drunk, and I can't keep doing that. And it's just like, oh my God.
It's so much more sensationalist and, you know, unrealistic. And then Law and Order: Criminal Intent is like, you know, what's his name, Vincent D'Onofrio, going in and just being like, he speaks Mandarin, but with a Korean accent. So that means he lived at this prison. And so that means he's crazy. Not me. I'm not crazy. He's crazy.
Yeah, like, it's just, and he solves the case by finding, like, a typewriter written and then, like, circling, like, words and letters on these, like, impossible to decipher boards. And I'm like, I just literally can't follow along with you how you are making these, like, supposed deductions.
He's just that good of a detective. He's Vince.
Like, none of it.
I love Vincent D'Onofrio, but this is not a good character for him.
No, this is the guy who in our one of our previous episodes yells at a serial killer that he's not his dad. It's in your blood.
And yet, I mean, they did almost 200 episodes. This was only halfway through the show.
Yeah.
SVU, of course, did 500 episodes in Law and Order.
Oh yeah, it's still going. It's season 21, and it's still going.
Oh my God, crazy.
It's crazy.
Also, just some, like, information about the syndication for these shows. I think it's interesting that Law and Order, because it's not, like, very serialized, it was actually considered, like, a bad candidate for syndication, even though it has such a huge popular library. It's just like each individual episode is too expensive and there's too many of them to put on your streaming site.
Right.
So it's almost nowhere. It's going to be on Peacock soon because NBC already has the rights to it. So they can syndicate it within their own, you know, thing.
I hate the syndication sprawl of online media, but we can talk about that another time. Hawaii 5-0. This is the 2010 remake.
Right.
With Daniel Day Kim and that girl from Battlestar Galactica, whose name I forget.
And everyone from Lost. Every single Hurley and what's the guy, the bad guy who...
I don't know.
everybody from Lost is in this show for some reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about this one because it's whack.
It's this is, I think, the worst one when it comes to just bad cops being
Bad cops
bad
being bad.
and just horrible, horrible people. You know, it's got a this was incomprehensible to me. Like, and I think if you
Right,
don't
having
already
not
know the
known the
show, it would
characters of the
probably
show.
like no part of it makes sense. The ending is the only thing makes sense because they do sort of like a montage of everyone like remembering being like a police family together and like
Right.
putting their
Well,
arms around their shoulders.
the one cop is being drugged with sodium pentothal or
Or
something, or like a truth
something. It's
serum type thing.
not.
And he just keeps being drugged, so he's having these hallucinations about his past, and he can't like keep time straight. And he's remembering the time that his dad was shot in the back of the head 4 years ago, and he's remembering the time where he first met his partner in Hawaii 5-0, and they went on this crazy spree where they, you know, they have
Shoot
this
a
terrorist.
injured man in the leg.
Yeah, they have this terrorist in the hospital, and they're interrogating him, and then the one guy who's a cop on the edge, and he wears a Hawaiian shirt because he's from Jersey, and he's like, I'm gonna just shoot him in the knees because, you know, there's no laws.
Jersey.
There's no laws. And so he just shoots him twice in the kneecap, and he's screaming in pain. It's really hard to watch. And the other guy's just
so
like,
much of
I
this
think
show.
I should get somebody. I'm gonna put you under arrest. But then the guy's like, don't you dare. Don't you want to find out why he killed your father? And so then that's how they become friends, I guess, is through a shared breaking of international law.
Yeah, it's very weird. Apparently they're never prosecuted for any of this. And again, cops keep being terrible.
Cops be cops.
They
But then it
continue
also
to do
turns out that the bad guy is his secret adopted brother that he never met, which I
his
don't know how
mom.
that works.
Yeah, it's weird. And
Okay.
then he's like, they get into a fight at the end and they're both pointing guns at each other. He's like, brother, please. And he's like, you're not my brother. And they both pull the trigger. And then we're like, oh my God, is he dead? And he's not dead, but the other guy is. So hooray.
Hooray.
Also, there's a horrific murder of a Black woman in this, and her body is used horrifically as well. So just like negative 5 trillion points to this Hawaii 5-0 episode.
But it's very dissimilar from the original Hawaii 5-0, which is just kind of a, you know, a cheeky, fun, you know, buddy cop show.
Yeah, like the original, it's very dry in comparison, you know?
Oh, well, I mean, definitely compared to now, like all the shows in the 80s were pretty dry. I mean, like, they were very content to just like show the procedures of being a cop as opposed to flashy editing and flashbacks inside of flashbacks and death and destruction.
Right. But, you know, like this Hawaii 5-0 ran for much longer than the other one, than the newer one did. It ran all the way from the end of the 60s through to the 80s. And its 100th episode had a guest star of William Shatner. Whoa.
Yeah, a lot of great like guest star episodes. In this one, William Shatner is like a private detective that gets hired by somebody to infiltrate a blackmailing ring by blackmailing them. And so then stuff gets crazy when the Hawaii 5-0 gets involved, and it all works out for the best.
Yeah.
Jail,
There's definitely some strange law shit going on here that's probably illegal, but it's not murdering people, so
not murdering people, so it's good.
Give it a pass. Then we have the craziest show, The Blacklist, where everyone just murders everyone.
I genuinely don't get how this is the like. I generally don't get how this is like the most popular show right now. That's not based on another property.
Is it still the most popular show?
I don't know if it is. I don't know if it still is in the same way that it was, but like this was like the huge, big, popular show, and it's the only one that wasn't like, you know, NCIS 2 or Law and Order 3. Like it's the only thing that's an original property, and the only thing it's got going for it, as far as I can tell, is that people just like to hear James Spader improvise random musings on the modern day.
Yeah, this one
used to be able to get a malt shop at the malt store place. But now everything's
it's so dumb. The guest stars Nathan Lane. It features
Yep.
the dissolving of a body um,
Right.
by
Yeah.
his daughter, former
His
cop,
daughter is
who
also a
is,
master criminal. James
yeah,
Spader is a master criminal. They will
it's,
both work for the FBI. The daughter's trying to solve the murder of her husband, and
he's
he's
trying
just
to
trying to
rob the
catch this
federal mint.
guy, right? Who's to get counterfeit bills, more counterfeit money and pennies.
Well, it's not
Uh,
even counterfeit bills. They're like real bills, but they're like lost. And I
okay,
don't
yeah.
understand how they're supposed to give him any actual money though, because if he shows up with them, they'll be like,
No, they're
you.
untraceable. Supposed to be the
It
thing.
doesn't make any sense. He robs a federal mint in this one and gets away with it, which is absurd.
Yeah,
Um,
just by plugging in
a
a vacuum
vacuum.
cleaner into the into the vent system, and it just sucks up all the money.
It's Looney Tunes. It's Looney
It's
Tunes.
Looney Tunes. People like it.
All right, David, tell me about Different Strokes.
Different Strokes. This one was, another guest star, so I thought it would go well with the other guest star episodes. Basically, what's his name? Albert. Gary Coleman.
Yeah.
He's at school, and his teacher is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's a substitute teacher, and they keep commenting on how tall he is because Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is very tall. And that's the joke. And then there's a whole thing about Gary Coleman lies about getting slapped by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Oh my God.
But it was an accident,
Cool.
so it's okay.
So it's
And then
fine.
that's the lesson learned. But no Willis in this one for some reason. There's no
No
Willis.
Willis. All right.
More guest stars. Let's do another guest star one.
Oh God. This one also this is like top of my list for just craziest 100th episodes, or
Yeah.
just crazy shows in general. Had never heard of this before. Apparently it was very popular. It's called Touched by an Angel. It ran for 9 seasons on CBS. And it's about like angels who come to Earth and like help people with problems and like
Yeah.
make them come to God or something.
Exactly. That's what angels do. They're emissaries of God. And
I
she's
guess.
working her 100th case.
Yeah, she's
Which
Irish
is
also. I
right.
don't
Well,
know
the actress
why.
is.
Yeah, but anyway, this is the worst thing. There's like a kid dying of not, is it fibromyalgia or
He's
no?
dying of a disease. The point
Cystic
is,
fibrosis, that's the one.
he's
He's
dying.
dying of that. And his mom is a singer-songwriter, and she's really sad, and she can't finish the song she started writing in
Right.
praise to
And she's
God.
titled the song Psalm 151 because there's only 150 psalms, and none of them captured the love that she feels for her son.
Yeah.
And she can't finish the song.
Because she doesn't thank God anymore because her son is sick and he's gonna die. Right. And so basically her and the other angels just help this kid cross off his bucket list. He takes his friend who's a big Celine Dion fan to meet Celine Dion. It's basically just Make-A-Wish, the TV show.
It's Make-A-Wish, but by an angel. Yeah. And so Celine Dion is in the episode to help write the song, kind of, tangentially. And then
sort of.
wait, who is the actress who actually plays the songwriting mom?
Oh, the mom? It is
like a country music star, Winona Judd.
Winona Judd, yeah. So she, I think, wrote this song like for the episode. But the craziest part of the episode is that she's singing this song with like a backup choir that she's borrowed from around the town, I guess. And they like raise a flag that's like, this kid lives here, and like they're all there, and he's like blue and just clearly like dying. And they start singing, and halfway through the song he dies, and his mom is just like, I'm gonna keep singing and playing my guitar even though this kid is dead. And it's just like, this is the most insane shit I've ever like experienced. It's so strange.
All right, we're just about halfway there, so we're gonna speed through a lot of these other ones.
Okay.
King of Queens is another big guest star one. Jerry Stiller's character, may he rest in peace, goes to see a shrink, and he has a flashback to his childhood where his father, played by his real life son, Ben Stiller, is there. So that's kind of a cheeky one.
Yeah.
But I think that's our last like big guest star one for a while. But I think that King of Queens is a good transition into, there's a ton of shows about dumpy men who are in family sitcoms and they're insecure.
Yeah. Like the Drew Carey show. This one has nothing to do with 100. They fix a roof. The end.
Right. Yeah. But Drew Carey's very insecure about a lot of things, and his girlfriend is like a handy person.
Yeah.
Fix him up. And he's like, you can do anything if you listen to these motivational tapes. I don't know.
It's fine. It's nothing. The next one is Home Improvement. This is a season finale. Wilson gets a girlfriend. He gets set up by
Wilson, the guy from behind the fence.
We never see his face this entire episode. It's a whole episode around that joke.
Funny joke. And also he talks about bugs.
Yeah. He's weird. But then
episode goes nowhere, and then there's a joke about boys using makeup to cover up pimples, and it's Home Improvement. It's gone for 200 episodes. Good for them. How do these shows like last so long?
People just don't have no one complains about it. There's so nothing that there's nothing to write about. Then we got the Cosby Show. This is about nothing.
I had to include it, even despite he's not a person of he's not a person anymore.
Yeah.
He goes to a physical and he's insecure about his body.
Terribly unfunny, the whole episode.
Yeah.
I did not find it.
Not much there.
Then we've got All in the Family.
But all of these kind of come from the original insecure man, remarking on the modern day as it is. The All in the Family, it's the what's his name? I forgot.
Archie Bunker.
It's the Archie Bunker syndrome. That's where all of these shows come from. Cosby Show, Home Improvement, Drew Carey Show, King of Queens. Even though they're all a little bit different, they're still all out of touch, dumpy white men who are like, I don't get all this newfangled society stuff.
Right. Or black men, like with the Jeffersons and the Cosby Show.
Right. But the Jeffersons was more about like upward mobility and the black family.
But it was like the
Cosby Show was about black professionals and navigating that sphere. But like All in the Family, purely just about a guy who doesn't get it.
Yeah.
What doesn't he get this time for the 100th episode?
A prisoner is on work release doing plumbing.
I don't get it.
And everyone else gets it and is really chill about it, and he's weird about it.
And eventually he learns a little lesson that, maybe he shouldn't judge a book by its cover and by its being
criminal record.
Right. Well, this isn't another Norman Lear show, but it's a spin-off of a Norman Lear show, a spin-off of Different Strokes, in fact, The Facts of Life. And this one's notable in the 100th episode count, basically because it opens with the cast like directly addressing the audience and saying like, hey, thanks for helping us get to 100. So that's nice of them.
Right.
Beverly Hills 90210 has the opposite.
Yeah.
They end with a thank you, like, hey, thanks for helping us reach 100 episodes. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Also, there's a dog that dies in this episode, and so they have the dog in the finale, and they're like, just want to let you know that this dog is actually safe and not dead from dog cancer.
No animals were harmed in the making. Which is because the episode's about, like, animal cruelty. And one of the characters joins, like, this anarchist animal rights.
It ends with her getting arrested.
Well, because she's like, she realizes partway through that animal rights activism is wrong because, no, guys, this is the good animal testing facility. They're trying to stop babies from dying.
Right.
And, like, obviously the animal rights people are like, yeah, we know what they're doing. The point is that they shouldn't be experimenting on animals.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a big, I'm not big against, like, medical experiments on animals. but this isn't a political podcast, you know.
Right now, go to primary education for that.
Right.
All
So
right.
from Beverly Hills 90210, maybe we should go to more Beverly Hills.
Yeah, the Beverly Hillbillies. I loved this show. This was
Yeah.
delightful. I genuinely giggled at parts of it. It tickled something in me.
I mean, it's very of its time. Basically, there's beatniks in town, and some of the hillbillies are becoming beatniks.
Right.
That's the whole joke.
But the grandma becomes a beatnik, and
right, the grandma becomes a beatnik, and she starts doing the tater digging dance.
Right.
Come on, do the bojack.
It's just like, it's so stupid, but it's like clearly one of the first examples of this kind of stupidity, and so I don't know, I'm just into it.
It's like, charming.
It's very charming.
But they finish off the episode because everyone's got to get back to normal. They can't just keep talking jive every episode. So they end it by making all the beatniks turn posh by giving them money.
Right.
And it is a spinoff, right?
What?
The Beverly Hillbillies had a spinoff, right?
Did it?
They had Green Acres, and then we watched an episode of Petticoat Junction.
Oh, well, Green Acres was the spinoff of Petticoat Junction, so I guess Petticoat Junction was the spinoff of Beverly Hillbillies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the same creator. It's in the same universe, I guess.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of overlapping characters or anything, but we watched Petticoat Junction 100th episode, The Windfall, where it's just some poor podunk, motel owners find some money buried in the woods.
Yeah, it's weird. They have money and pay off their bills, but then he thinks it's stolen money, so he returns it. And
the end, they end up not having the money anymore.
Yeah.
So the getting rich, striking it rich episodes always have to end. It can't just end with them spending the money on some frivolous things, but being generally better well off for the next episode.
All right. No, it's status quo, David. Status quo. They're always going to be struggling.
Speaking of status quo, Night Court. I love Night Court.
I loved this. This was the weirdest show, but it was very entertaining.
Yeah, this one is called Mac's Millions, and Mac wins or gets a bunch of money inherited from his dead uncle or whatever, and he loses it all in a big lawsuit.
Yep.
This fun fact: this episode was written by Linwood Boomer, who would go on to pitch the pilot for Malcolm in the Middle.
Oh, well, there you go. Very fascinating.
Yep.
Yeah, so I enjoyed this one, but not particularly 100-y. They celebrate with some extravagant things that all have to be sold in the end.
Yeah, there's some nice gifts, but they all disappear. So those are a couple episodes about striking it rich.
What about the opposite?
We got a bunch of episodes about being poor.
So poor. So, we get Lassie, where the grandpa, this one is about telling white lies and how you shouldn't ever lie because people will misunderstand.
But it's also about thinking that you're poor when you're really not poor.
Yeah, so basically it starts with a lie and to get rid of a traveling salesman, and then the traveling salesman tells the kid that his family's poor, so he starts trying to get a job and sell things, and he has his friend take care of Lassie, and the mom is like, what the fuck are you doing?
That's the big stakes for everything. It's we're gonna lose Lassie.
Right. And then finally everyone comes clean that it was a lie and lying is wrong and he shouldn't have lied, and they
I was always confused. I was always confused by if Lassie is the show, the cliched episode structure is that Lassie finds somebody stuck in a well.
Right?
I was like, how do you do that every episode for 200 episodes? And the answer is they don't. It's really just a family sitcom that happens to have a dog.
Yeah. And the dog is a person they all love. That's fine.
More poor country folk.
Yeah, so the Waltons, this is set during the Depression, so they are a poor family, but the main character, John Boy, I believe is his name, he has a sort of a romance interest who's rich, and so she is normally off at college at Vassar, and she she tries to convince him to join the Spanish War um, on the side of the Republicans. Yeah, it's a really intense episode. It's great. And then she can't anymore because her grandfather finally tells her that they lost all their money and they have to sell everything in their house and go live in a little cottage. And so she doesn't get to go back to Vassar. She has to go to the local West Virginia college and, you know, stay there is sort of what the resolution is.
I think of the Waltons as one of those shows from the 70s where no one actually remembers anything about the show itself, but they just remember the theme song, or in this case, the ending theme, where at the end of every episode, everybody says goodnight. Good night, John Boy. Good night, Tim Tom. Good night, Bob.
Yeah, I don't know. I would watch more of the Waltons. I was pleasantly surprised by this.
Another
we got
classic,
Little House
on the Prairie.
This is just a sitcom. I don't under, but like instead of playing like the goofy music when the dads are being goofy in this one, they just play like the most ominous, like bad stuff is about to happen.
You know, it's supposed to be like wholesome music. And in this one, the boys try to get jobs, and then when they're not treated like men, the boys run away from home.
No, they don't run away. There's a test. It's a test. The dads give them a test.
But they are going and they're doing this test to see if they can get to the next town over and deliver
and get a letter and bring the letter back.
Okay. Yeah. So the dads follow them and they think like, well, we're going to be watching over them the whole time and they won't know it, but we'll be fine and they'll be the ones in danger.
Right.
Save them. But it turns out that they didn't prepare and they didn't bring any money or food. So they starve and get thrown in jail.
Right.
But they make it back and everyone makes it back in one piece.
Yeah,
it's a coming-of-age story.
They all learn that it's good to be a kid for now, so we'll have a summer.
It's a coming-of-age story about being poor in the country and needing a job.
Yeah.
But those problems still all exist today, right?
Yeah.
Or at least they did in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
That's Roseanne. Roseanne is the show about a person who we would later find out is mentally ill and should not have a Twitter account. But at the time, she was just a voice for the working class on network television.
Right. Before Twitter existed.
Right. Thank God she only recently got Twitter.
Yeah. But so she, whatchamacallit? Their power gets shut off for the weekend, so they have to live with flashlights, and there's a subplot where the dad is still really mad at the oldest sister for getting pregnant.
They're not talking.
Right, they're not talking. And so
their younger daughter has a boy over to draw comic books with.
Yeah.
And
he ends up staying over.
He
and
stayed
they think
over
that
the
they're
night.
having sex.
So I know you two are having sex because we already had somebody who told us that they weren't having sex and she got pregnant. So she probably had sex. But anyway, it's about like, you know, expectations about growing up and, you know, virginity and these things being things that parents care about
right. Again, nothing particularly special though about 100 or anything like that.
No, but I mean, it represents kind of a shift in their relationships. I mean, at the end, you know, John Goodman does call his daughter and like start having an awkward conversation.
Well, it's the kind of conversation you have with your estranged father where he tells you how to fix stuff.
Right.
You know?
I mean, let's be real. Like the you know, Striking It Rich episodes and the episodes about being poor, these might just be coincidences because we watch such a wide variety of shows. I mean, there's going to be crazy coincidences that just happen because we're watching 100 shows. But I think that there's something interesting going on in that there are 3 episodes that feature heavily stereotyped Italian immigrants.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive in.
Yeah, so let's start with Golden Girls, which is probably the most stereotypical, I think the Italians get, where...
Like, oh, the principessa, oh, my little bambino,
This
bambino.
Was, the idea is that she was switched at birth with this Italian woman.
She may have been switched at birth with her Italian neighbors back in the old country.
Right.
But we never find out what the truth is.
Right, because it's not important because, she was raised by the woman she calls mother, and...
Yeah, I mean, this feels like a big 100th episode event to me.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of like, yeah, we're a family is the end theme,
All right, yeah, I guess pretty standard. What about Who's the Boss?
So this one, it's where the guy, the dad, I don't know his name. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
these people.
It's Tony Danza. It's
He's
me.
Italian. Yeah, basically, it's a flashback to he accidentally made his grandfather miss his swearing-in ceremony to become a U.S. citizen, and he then dies the next week. So it was never officially needed.
It's another flashbacky episode. It's another reflective episode, and in this case, it's a childhood trauma episode.
Right. So
but
basically,
it's all about his stereotypical grandpappy.
He teaches him to tap dance with soda tops.
Right, and to be grateful for being American.
Yeah. But he gets him posthumously citizenized, naturalized.
Right, which is I don't think is a real thing.
I don't think so either, but a judge did it, so whatever. And then we've got Everybody Loves Raymond, another big travel episode. They go to Italy.
And they see their crazy Italian relatives, or I don't speak English, here, have a drink.
And they're all just like, oh, my nagging wife. And,
it's a Maron, my nagging wife, a Maron.
Yeah, and this one is mostly about how Raymond needs to just settle in and enjoy the ride and stop being a little bitch about getting a free trip to Italy.
I mean, there's some character development there, I guess. I mean, this episode it came about because somebody asked if the real life Ray Romano wanted to take a trip, and he was like, I don't care about other cultures.
Which is a line in the episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfect. Like, Ray is based on Ray in real life. Of course he is. In this case, his just stuffiness and all around ignorance of other cultures. But he learns to love it, so character development.
Yeah.
This is like the big two-parter.
Yeah.
We had some other two-parters that we mentioned. Jag was a two-parter. But here are some really big dramatic two-parters.
Yeah, it's interesting that as far as the two-parters go, this is one of the few two-parters that's just for a comedy. They're usually in the dramas. There's some
other ones too. Can't remember them, but
there were some. Yeah, so of course, when you're talking big dramatic two-parters, you can't not talk about Star Trek: The Next Generation, which was known for its season finale cliffhangers that were two-parters and started again at the beginning of the next season.
Right. So here, the cliffhanger is Worf. He quit.
There's gonna be
the Klingon Civil War.
Yeah. It was big. It was dramatic. It's also a season finale and a season opener. So what else can you expect?
It is kind of weird that apparently a Starfleet officer can just quit the Force, join, break a bunch of laws according to Starfleet laws, and then just join back up again and regain his same rank so that the status quo is restored.
I mean, it is what it is.
He did it for a good reason, so it's fine.
Yeah, then we have the X-Files, and this one is full of just dramatic twists, big reveals. Scully's cancer get cured. It's it's the season opening. And I mean, X-Files has always been tough to follow to me, but I mean, this one is really crazy because there's a ton of plot threads that don't necessarily lead anywhere for the episode, but they're just setting up plot points for the whole season. Right.
His sister coming back, his long lost sister comes back, and turns out she's been living with an alien or an FBI guy or something. Yeah. I don't know.
He's the FBI guy who's been giving them secrets this whole time, but they've learned to distrust him, and then he gets murdered in the end of this episode, and so does another guy, and it's just more government cover up stuff. And yeah.
And the episode's called Redux, but I don't really know why, because it doesn't seem like anything's repeated.
No.
But it's the 100th. It's the big event.
Scully has a crisis of faith that gets
Of
resolved.
course. I mean, that's like
yeah.
in every episode, right?
Not every episode, but yes, that is a big part of her character.
Right. Well, I mean, it's normally she's like the skeptic, but her religious faith is important to her as well.
Right.
It's an irony.
Yeah. So then there's Arrow, which...
This is not a big dramatic two-parter, but it's a big dramatic crossover event.
Right. So there were other parts of this episode, basically, that were aired during other TV shows in the Arrowverse.
Scattered across The Flash and DC Legends of Tomorrow.
And Supergirl.
And Supergirl. And this one was called Invasion because they were all called Invasion.
Yeah, basically they're all in like an alien pod and they have like this alternate universe where everything's happy and Oliver's getting married to not Sarah Lance, the other one, it doesn't matter. Laurel.
The other one.
Remembered her name, haha. I've watched too much of this show.
It's a Lotus Eater machine, right? Like that trope where everyone's just stuck in a dream world of their greatest desire and they have to break loose and accept that death is real so that they can rejoin reality and fight the aliens.
Yeah, it's great. And by great, I mean terrible. Because it is the most self-congratulatory episode I think I watched of all of these episodes.
Well,
they just have, I don't know. They have just like this scene like right before he leaves where like the ghosts of all the people that like Oliver has like not killed, but that is like sort of lost along the way, basically, like standing there like at the end of fucking Harry Potter or something, like, Godspeed, Oliver, defeat the aliens. And he's like, I remember, and all my experiences made me the man that I am, and like so much dumb speech making, and like he has to leave his parents again, who have died.
You're biased against the Arrowverse. We get it, okay? We get it. You don't like Arrowverse. We're moving on.
Once Upon a Time is stupid. They go to the underworld.
Right.
The end.
I seriously don't get how this is a show, Once Upon a Time. If you guys like it, please explain it to me. It's just Disney propaganda.
Yeah.
And, they really literally find Hades in the underworld, and the next episode, you're going to find Hercules and Megara, and they're going to like instantly connect, like, I'm Herc, I'm Meg, let's date. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Who watches this garbage? But everyone's dead and they're mourning, so there's a lot more death in
Yeah, they go to the underworld, so they all cope with someone they know who's dead. Or
Supernatural has someone come back from the dead.
Yeah.
Their long lost half brother, and then he dies again in this episode, and then they also kill that one bad angel. I'm into Supernatural now. I'm gonna say it after doing our Trapped in TV Land thing, and after watching this episode, I'm invested. I'll watch it at some point.
Don't be swayed by the TV propaganda episodes. No, I can't.
All right. Well, in any case, there's other Supernatural death episodes as well.
Yeah, this is a big one. So spoilers for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Skip ahead like 2 minutes or something if you don't want to hear this.
This is the season 5 finale, The Gift.
Yeah. Buffy dies to save the universe.
But it's all because she thought that, there was a prophecy that said death is your gift, and she's like, great, so I just have to keep killing and killing even the people I love, even my sister, who's actually a manifestation of a key to hell, and oy vey is me, and and she realizes, oh, death is my gift because I can sacrifice myself to save others and then get resurrected next season because the show has to continue.
Yeah.
But, I mean, can you imagine if the show ended here? It'd be crazy.
It'd be crazy. I mean, it ends on a weird note as it is. Like, it ends on a pretty dark note. But
because the Niles-looking motherfucker was named Giles.
Yeah, it's Giles.
Somebody in cold blood.
Yeah, he definitely kills someone in cold blood.
Yeah, so it's classic Joss. Death and
angst.
Angst,
relationships,
and being a teenage girl, and
I mean, I think this is not a bad episode of Buffy.
No, it was fine.
As far as episodes go.
But it's, it's got those Joss Whedon-isms, like the weird running joke about Anya hating bunnies that I don't get.
Yeah. Vampire Diaries, also about vampires, also about death. The big evil vampire.
This one is so much more complicated than Buffy. Like, the rules in Buffy are like, there is a hell, that's where demons come from. You can kill them with a stake through the heart, unless otherwise specified. But in this one, it's like there's so many different kinds of vampires, and everyone's like part vampire at least, and they all have different conflicting powers. I couldn't track Vampire Diaries at all.
Yeah, I mean, basically what I could figure out is that, like, these two women, like, who are both vampires, though one of them wasn't a vampire to begin with, I guess. Basically, the big evil one is dying. And so it's a lot of reminiscing about her dying and all the terrible things she's done, and relationship status is changing.
A big thing in all of these.
Yeah. And then she goes to die, but then steals the body of the main girl, and more drama will continue, is like the big twist at the end. Then we have Desperate Housewives, which is just about middle-class women feeling responsible for a working class man's life, and it's
about the relationships we have with the working class and how they enrich us and we enrich their lives in return. And it's all about how this one person brought them all together. It's their heroic origin story. And it was just this handyman who just couldn't help but make everyone's lives better because he was so simple. It's another episode all about flashbacks and how the group came to be.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's from a heretofore unseen character who just dies.
Yeah. I barfed a lot during this episode.
I don't know. I think it's supposed to be a satire. I mean, a lot of the jokes are a little bit cheesy, but I don't think it's that bad.
I don't know. It's just like,
I wouldn't watch it, but I don't begrudge anyone who does.
Yeah, not for me.
What I would begrudge is people who watch Bones.
I want to watch Bones now. This episode made me go, I'm in.
Hate Bones. This is another flashback to the origins episode.
It's
this is secret origins.
Yeah, so their real origins weren't in the pilot episode. It was in this episode where they secretly solved a case before that, and they disproved to some guy that they're in love, but really they are in love.
Because they did kiss, and then they didn't get together because the FBI says it's illegal.
Yeah, you can't.
I don't know. I still just don't get. I mean, because this is the only episode of Bones I've ever watched. So I don't get how they did 246 episodes about bones. How are bones always the central thing to solving a crime? It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, it depends on what crime, but yeah, there you go.
It's like every time they're going to say, this bone was bruised by something really specific, like a hammer that's only sold in Wisconsin or something. And they'll just do that every episode.
Yep. It's fine. I don't mind it. The characters are fun.
I was also curious if like the show, like how long it takes after this for the will they won't they pair to get together. And it's like next season they have sex once and then she gets pregnant and then they get married.
Cool. Great. 2.5 Men. The show is trash and I'm so glad that I never watched it. He is in a relationship with the voice of Mulan.
Interesting.
And she's like a cool judge, but he
keeps seeing his old flame everywhere, so he must still be crazy about her.
No, she's just stalking him.
That she was stalking him, and then when she says that she wants them to have kids, he's like, I'm out of here. The end.
Yeah, it's dumb.
It's Charlie.
Then there's Big Bang Theory, which is like, this one's a daydream by Leonard about what it would be like if he and Penny like tried dating again, and it ends terribly, but then he tries to do it in real life anyway and is like, I just love you so much, and then we all know it ends happily, so it's whatever.
Right.
But it's a big relationship shift.
Big marketing push for this
Yeah.
one. They're gonna get back together, you guys. You're gonna see them sleep together. The nerd's gonna get the hot girl
again. Yeah. Anyway, Family Matters. Urkel gets a big kiss. Then again, the nerd gets laid.
I really didn't realize that was what happens in this show. Like that the latter half of this show is about a love triangle with Steve trying to hit on Laura and then Myra trying to hit on Steve, and Steve being like, "I'm too good for you, Laura or Myra." And then apparently like the rest of the show centers around him inventing a transformation machine that turns him into Stefan Urkel.
Yep.
Like this is where we're seeing like where the show is about to jump the shark but hasn't quite yet.
Yeah, it's clearly impending doom.
Right. Like the B plot in this episode is still about the family. It's about the mom in the family losing her job because she doesn't want to fire anybody, and money troubles in the working class family. But you just know that in like 4 episodes, Stefan Urkel is gonna burst on the scene, and then we're gonna have Carl Urkel, where Carl Winslow gets put in the machine.
Urkelized, yeah.
He gets Urkelized.
Then we have Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and this is the one where Rosa.
This is significant.
Yeah.
Change, a big shift in the show, which is, this is the episode where Rosa comes out as bi.
Bi, yeah. Making many fans very, very happy. It's also the episode where she tries to come out to her parents, and so hijinks ensue with her and Jake, and her mother seems to not be so accepting. There's a big,
it changes the status quo.
Yeah.
It's a big 100th episode event.
Yeah.
And same goes for the Office, which I think this is a season finale, right?
Yes, I believe so.
And it's a big status quo shifting episode. First of all, we have the reintroduction of Holly, the person who is going to get matched up with Michael Scott. And we've got one of the branches is going to be closing down. And we've got a baby is being had.
Right. Yeah. We get the big news that Jim and Pam are expecting. And again, more teasing of Michael and Holly. So lots of classic sitcom-y things.
Right. But a sitcom with, serialization and continuity.
Yeah.
Friends did that too. They also had things.
Phoebe had her babies, the triplets, for her brother. And
it's weird that this one has 2 titles because they wanted to advertise it as the 100th episode. So the title is the 100th or the one with the triplets.
Yeah. Either one.
Right.
And so, there's Chandler and Monica are sort of just beginning their relationships and are still more of in a secret fling phase. And so Rachel is trying to get Monica some dates and what have you. And she's like, oh, no. So it is.
Of course, there's a show that was trying really, really hard to be friends, which is How I Met Your Mother.
This one's got a musical number.
Yeah, they sing about suits. It's real funny. I don't like this show.
It's fine. I didn't hate the suit dance.
It's whatever.
Neil Patrick
they
Harris
dance and
sings
they wear
good.
suits.
It's fine. It's a dumb thing. It's will he sleep with a hot bartender or get rid of suits? Anyway.
The biggest stakes in this episode are, will Barney no longer wear a suit? So dumb. But there are other musical numbers for a big celebration, like 100th episode, right?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Scrubs does an entire Wizard of Oz parody. Because he's trying to get out of the hospital after getting called in for no reason.
Right. He just wants to go home. There's no place like home.
Right. And, each of his friends has an issue they need solved involving courage.
Kirk wants to do a heart transplant.
Right.
So he needs a heart. And,
Carla needs courage.
Elliot, Yeah, and Elliot is trying to give a big presentation, so she needs to get a brain.
Yeah.
They had it inside all along.
Yeah. And so, it all resolves, and it's okay.
Right. That 70s show, in addition to like being advertised with a big 100th episode celebration with interviews and ranking the top 10 episodes and like all kinds of stuff, it was a full musical, which is really just a cheaply made jukebox musical with bad choreography. At one point, they make a swastika with their hands accidentally.
Oh, yeah.
No good.
No good. Also, just the singing is awful.
Yeah, no, it's not good singing. But hey, it's a musical episode. It's that 70s musical.
Yeah, it's very bad. Then there's Bob's Burgers, which does some musical.
Yeah, I mean Bob's Burgers does musicals often, usually in a finale episode, and this is a finale episode. This is another one where the listed 100th episode is very different from the broadcast
Celebrated
100th episode.
Yeah,
the celebrated whatever. The production codes in animation, they can be very off because you can work on an episode totally out of order before it gets broadcast. But yeah, Bob gets glued to a toilet seat and sings about how it's bad.
I love this show so much. Then we've got The Simpsons.
Let's finish off the rest of the animated ones real quick. We'll do The Simpsons. What happens?
It's when Principal Skinner gets fired. Bart gets him fired.
Temporarily, of course. But it's a big emotional thing because he and Bart form a kind of friendship while he's fired. And now they have a mutual respect for each other once he goes back to work. And apparently they specifically selected this one to be the 100th episode because they wanted the 100th to be a Bart episode for whatever reason. Because he's the most popular, I guess. He's on the most t-shirts.
Okay, so let's move on to King of the Hill.
King of the Hill. King of the Hill.
Yeah.
Right.
What would you say about this one, David?
There is absolutely nothing remarkable about this episode, and we're moving on.
Yeah. It had 100th episode at the end. Dynasty. Now we're getting into the soaps.
Yes.
These are just if they weren't on daytime television, they were gonna end up here.
Right.
So there's two classics.
Dynasty and Dallas.
Yeah, from the late 70s, early 80s, both of them.
Yeah.
Dynasty and Dallas. And Dynasty, again, they're all just about rich people in the Midwest or the South. Dynasty, they're in Colorado and London also. There's a wedding that happens in London.
Another wedding episode.
Yeah. And then it's I guess it's not an off-screen wedding. But this is the most sober wedding by far because it's just like a Catholic priest like saying marriage is really serious. You should enter this into soberly and aware and not giddy. And I'm just like, geez, this is dark. But it's like the sort of the evil like stepmom person who is the one getting married, and turns out, big reveal, her daughter is the daughter of the main guy who buys a horse.
Twist.
Yeah,
the crowd goes wild.
He buys a horse for his wife from one of his wife's former lovers, or like I don't know, almost lovers, and so there's drama there, and it's it's just lots of soap opera twists, and it's also Christmas. It's Christmas in Dynasty.
It's Christmas also, in addition. Hard to line up your 100th episode with a holiday, but some people did it.
Some people do.
Yeah, I mean the Boy Meets World was also a Christmas episode.
Yeah, and then we'll see later. There's a Sabrina the Teenage Witch that is on Halloween.
We also watched Dallas, the original, not the reboot. I don't think the reboot made it to 100.
No, I don't think it did.
This had like almost 400 episodes.
Yeah, and talk about a show that was globally syndicated. Like, boy howdy was Dallas. They're all tycoons. They're all oil tycoons.
Yeah.
Just
a couple of oil, man.
Yeah, this one ends with the like main son character getting arrested for the murder of like a like a vagrant or something in a hotel room, but he was definitely in that hotel room with the murdered guy, but he didn't murder him. So it's like soap opera and confusing.
Soap opera.
What have
There's
you.
a ton of blackmail in this episode, which is why it's titled Blackmail.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of futzing around about, we're going to publish this book about the oil men being con men. It's like, don't you dare publish anything about my oil men.
Yeah. It's very weird.
Very soapy. There's nothing particularly 100th episode-y about it. It's just we've reached this point in the story.
Yeah.
Any episode might as well be any other because it's all dramatic.
Yeah. You know what else is dramatic, David?
What?
Witches. So much drama.
I don't know. I think it's interesting. We have 3 shows about witches on here. I thought it might be fun to trace the history of witches on television.
I mean, this is not a complete list, but we've got Bewitched, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and Charmed.
Right, the original Charmed. Not the
Bewitched is there's nothing special for this episode. They invite Queen Victoria back, who is very difficult, and
I think this is interesting as a way to talk about shows, jumping the shark and stuff. Like, Bewitched by this point had already started to go through a bunch of cast changes and showrunner changes because, like, the show's popular, but it has nothing to do with anyone who works on it.
Right.
So people keep dying and then being replaced and then being recast. And I don't know. This is like the start of all that is by season 3.
Yeah. And it went on for 8 seasons.
These
are long
8 seasons of, like, a lot of episodes each. There's 254 Bewitched episodes.
Yeah.
At least.
So that's Bewitched. Then we got Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which only ran for 7 seasons, but feels like it ran forever. Just for the amount of times I've seen the reruns,
Well, isn't it interesting that, like, by this point she's barely even, like, a teenage witch?
No, she's in college. Yeah. But
like, how long can you stretch out a show about a teenager?
She has a Halloween party. I know. She has a Halloween party and real monsters come. I don't know why that's the thing that make nice. I don't know why that's the thing that makes your Halloween party cool, having, like, great people in real costumes or just monsters.
Look, they just love it. They love to see the ghouls.
They do.
They're like, whoa, look how many cool ghouls are here.
Right. It can't be alcohol because this is a family show.
Right. Yeah. They're a symbol for drugs is the ghouls.
Yeah. Anyway, nothing particularly 100-y happens here. Charmed, it's definitely
but I think it makes sense that Sabrina's 100th episode would be a Halloween episode.
Yeah.
Good to time that out.
That definitely tracks. Sabrina, no, we just did that. Charmed, on the other hand, does, it's like a big, like, lore episode in Charmed. Yeah. The bad guy who's the ex-husband of one of the witches, does like an alternate reality thing where they never met.
Right.
And so they don't have power, and he's just trying to, like, be in a timeline where they can be in love, and it just doesn't work.
He's a stalker who builds a whole alternate universe, but he's gone after this episode. He's gone for good.
He gets murdered, and the one sister, I think Paige, who was, like, was thinking that maybe she should leave the family, strike out on her own, decides to stay. So that's the big changes.
Okay, so it's an event. It's called Centennial Charmed, but doesn't really feel like a centennial of anything.
Nope. They know it's a thing, and so they made some big stuff happen, but not particularly anything. Speaking of nothing, Happy Days.
Speaking of nothing. Well, I thought, this one kind of goes with Bewitched a little bit because of jumping the shark.
Yeah.
And stuff. I think this is the season where they jump the shark. This is technically after they jump the shark.
Yeah.
It's an episode called Requiem for a Mouth, which one of the characters' name is Ralph Mouth, and he has to fight the bully. And then I looked it up, and literally there's an episode with an almost identical plot, but with the character played by Ron Howard, where he has to learn jujitsu to fight the bully.
Oh my god, it's very dumb.
it's like by the time you reach 100 episodes, you've exhausted all of the Happy Days plots.
Right.
That's why
Also,
people are jumping sharks.
The family is singing a song because there's a song contest coming up, so there's a musical number in this one as well.
Ah, yes.
Then there's Laverne and Shirley.
Lavoine.
The spinoff.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, Schlemiel, Schlemazel, Hassen, Pfeffer Incorporated. I love Laverne and Shirley.
I find this entirely unfunny. I don't know. I've never been one much for slapstick, and a lot of it is slapstick.
It is a lot of slapstick. That was the 70s. It's the deal that you got to make. I don't know. I kind of consider this to be like a proto Broad City. The goofy girl pair who is kind of down on their luck. They're not. They're not trying to have it all and have a family and a great job. They're just struggling to survive and adult.
Yeah, no, I think it has a important place in TV history, especially for representation of like white women on TV doing stuff. But this did nothing for me. They go on a vacation to like a rip-off motel.
Near Mexico.
Mexico.
The joke is that it's like, we're in a foreign country right now, but they're just in they're just by the Rio Grande.
Yeah. But I do like how this one ends, because all of the basically swindled patrons of this hotel unionize and try to eat the rich. They get their
pick
money
them up
back.
And they're like, to the bay. They're gonna throw them in the bay.
And he goes, wait, there's sharks in the bay. To the bay.
To the bay.
Wait, how about I give you a partial refund? To the bay. All right, full refund. To the safe. Like,
it's great.
It's a good working class moment. The rest of it is very dumb, and I don't care.
I don't know. I kind of like all of it. It's they're just going like, we're in the place. There's no wall. There's no bed. There's no toilet.
Right.
It's the worst vacation ever. I like it.
So we're getting towards the end now, which means,
we've got some outliers.
Yeah, it's stuff that didn't really jive with anything else. We've got House, which is basically just an episode of House where they...
Right. There's a character who is dying of a mysterious illness.
And it's her period. It's so weird.
And it turns out it's her period mixing with cancer.
Or something. It's weird.
Her period literally metastasized.
Yeah, I don't understand it. Anyway, then The West Wing, this one's got an achievement. There's some career goals. They save Social Security in this one. And I know you have a few.
Social Security.
Yeah, I know you have
this
some
is the
thoughts.
most West Wing episode ever. Jesus Christ! It's like Toby comes in and he's like, "Oh, look at me! We're gonna change history because we're going to be the Democratic establishment that decides to cut Social Security and coordinates with the Republicans, and we're gonna reach across that aisle so fucking hard, and it's gonna be insane." Remember I said this wasn't a political podcast? But
a lie.
Honestly, I mean, this is such a West Wing mentality that, like, in order to create change, you not only have to, like, give up everything to the other side, but you also have to just make them look good, because, it's the better thing that you lose an election, but save the country. Your legacy will say, we saved Social Security, which is just not how it works.
Part of it is saying, like, maybe this won't go in your legacy, but we'll know.
I mean,
but it's still stupid.
Total Bush era, liberal politics.
Right.
It's awful. It sucks. Skip it.
Yeah. Full House. The last time I really watched Full House, I had to have been a child. And revisiting it as an adult has truly made me appreciate how unfunny I find almost all of it, including this episode. Joey has a career goal of, he can't find a job, and his luck is going great for a day, but then it sort of turns around. But then in the end, he ends up as the new Ranger Joe on PBS,
Ranger
basically.
Joe happens to be played by Bonnie Martin, who you might know better as Morty Seinfeld, Seinfeld's dad,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was interesting because he also appears as a guest in, Murder, She Wrote as this Irish cop. So we've got two Morty Seinfelds running around,
Yeah.
solving mysteries and helping the kids.
It's funny. It's not funny. Murder, She Wrote. We're in it. Yeah, this one is weird. She takes down like a group of like
insurance
frauds dudes. But like
by
this is
jamming alcohol into his stomach and then blaming his death on alcoholism.
Yeah. And they know it's not a bum because he's got a shoe. Bums don't have shoes. It's it's the weirdest solving of a mystery.
Well, it's because she solves mysteries in a very authorial kind of way.
Like if I was writing this mystery.
It's like Castle. Everything's very dramatic.
She like plays all of these like incognito characters, and then they catch her and they're like, "Hey, you now stop trying to find out our secrets." She's you got
Angela
me.
Lansbury. She's adorable.
You can't murder Angela Lansbury to keep your insurance fraud business going.
Exactly. But I just wanted to put those two together, Full House and Murder, She Wrote, because of Morty Seinfeld. Speaking of Seinfeld, we should just say it. Seinfeld did a clip show.
It's an hour long, though. They did an hour-long clip show. And, like, honestly, I know this is a sin, but I've only caught, like, random episodes of Seinfeld in my life. I've never, like, really watched it. And so this felt like a really nice, like, encapsulation of the best moments of the show.
I mean, Seinfeld really does live in the clips. I mean, most of its jokes are pretty standalone. You don't need the rest of the episode to understand them.
Right, or you can figure out the context pretty easily.
For the 100th episode, I mean, you can't do something. I don't know. Whenever Seinfeld tried to do a big event, it usually failed. A big finale and whatever. But whatever. Just a clip show. All right. It's the only one that's
just a clip show. I don't hate it. I'm not mad about it. Then there's
the outlier to end all outliers.
Yeah. Married with Children. What is the show?
Well, I think it was. I can't read the minds of the creators, but I think that they were kind of trying to be like, hey, there's all these really wholesome family sitcoms. What if we made like an edgy family sitcom where the dad, instead of being like a lovable curmudgeon, is like an asshole who hates women? And I think that they were trying to make fun of him, but people ended up just liking him. Played by Ed O'Neill.
Yeah.
People ended up liking him, and I guess that's the show now.
I don't know. This episode wasn't even about Ed O'Neill, basically.
This is true, because they chose to use their 100th episode as a backdoor pilot for their failed sitcom Top of the Heap, starring Matt LeBlanc.
Who's like a boxer.
Was he a boxer?
Yeah.
He's just like a Guido, whatever.
He's a boxer and he loses matches, and that's why the Ed O'Neill character was mad at him. And she's like, the only way you're gonna make money, kid, is if you marry a rich broad. So they infiltrate a rich party and hijinks ensue, and it's very bad.
Yeah,
not funny.
I mean, this is why I get the sense that like the writers of Married with Children probably hated their own show and were just desperately trying to backdoor pilot something
else that they could all escape to.
Right. And I mean, Top of the Heap, it doesn't seem like as problematic a premise as Married with Children, which is just, I hate my wife.
Yeah.
This one is like class difference and also gender and wealth as a sort of conflicting, I don't know. I'm trying to defend it way too hard because I hate it. I hate it. But I don't want to just say that. I want to give it a fair shot.
It's fine. It's our 100th episode, David. We can just hate things now.
We can hate things now. I hate Top of the Heap.
Let's talk about something we don't hate.
Yeah, we're wrapping up this list. These are our final two.
Woohoo!
At 100, at 99 and 100 episodes, all the 100th episode in their show. Let's wrap it up.
We've got Futurama. These are the shows that were canceled before making it to 100, but then got uncanceled in one way or another and made it.
Yeah. There are a couple other examples on this list of that, but they fit better into other categories, like, like Family Guy was canceled and still made it. But these shows, I mean, Futurama was canceled like right before it would have hit the 100th episode mark. Well, considering that it did some movies. Right. It did almost 100, and then it did some movies that were each counted as 4 episodes each. Then it got canceled, and then it wasn't going to get picked up, but then Comedy Central said, I will give you a shot.
Yeah, and they did, and it opens with a big 100th episode 100th banner in the front. Well, so they're celebrating their 100th delivery, which is hilarious considering that it's just so tragic for this stupid delivery company. But it turns into a mutants rights episode where Leela storms City Hall, and I don't know, it's fine. It's an episode of Futurama. Basically.
It's an episode of Futurama. It's not Disenchanted. It's terrible. It's Futurama. And then finally, we've got the show that we always talk about, which is Community.
We have to end with Community because it just feels right.
Their first love.
Our first, well, it's certainly not our first love, but maybe one of our truest loves.
Right. But I mean, this show really went through some shit to get to 100.
Yeah. Which is why I was surprised. I knew they didn't do anything for the 100th episode, but I was really surprised that it was this episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, season 6
was on Yahoo.
A huge budget. It was on Yahoo. They were, pretty much locked into their room.
Yeah.
So this is one where they're basically spend the whole episode in the study room.
Right.
Basic crisis room decorum, because we have to figure out if Greendale gave a degree to a dog.
Yeah. And also, if it did, is that a bad thing? Or should we make an attack ad about City College before they air this? And, it's fine.
It feels like, what I love about Community is that all of the conflicts, even if they feel like they're resolved in the episode, they often come back in new and interesting ways.
Right.
Annie leaving for a school that takes itself more seriously, that came up in I don't know how many episodes, but it's a long-running thing for her character, as well as Jeff's moral ambiguity and whatever. But it's different now because Paget Brewster is here.
Right. It's interesting. This is definitely one of the shows with the fewest amount of seasons. The shortest, I think, is Jane the Virgin with only 5 seasons.
Yeah, that we went with. There's certainly other episodes that basically just grazed 100.
Right.
But we wanted to do the long-running shows.
Yeah, the big ones.
Because it's a special case.
Yeah. So we did it. We made it through all 100th episodes. What are our biggest takeaways, David? What's your biggest takeaway from all this?
The biggest takeaway is that the hitting 100 meant more longer ago.
Yes.
Because it was more important for getting syndication. It's actually become more a prominent marketing tool now than it did in the 50s and 60s and 70s.
Right. It's celebrated more now, but matters less.
Right. It's a fascinating conundrum because you only need 50 episodes of a standard, sitcom or whatever to get on Netflix. And it's actually harder to get onto Netflix if you have a lot of episodes, because Netflix might not shell out that much money for your property if you have 200, 300 episodes.
Right. So it's almost easier to get picked up. And, if it's something shorter, there's the chance that they could revive it and then have their own exclusive rights. And
Exactly. So the things have totally flipped. But what remains is this sense that 100, it's a big round number. It's Monk's favorite number.
Right.
It's our favorite number too, and so we're just glad that we've been able to stay with you for 100 uploads.
Yeah, it's. I'm honestly not shocked that we got here, but I feel very proud that we have put 100 of something out into the world.
Right, and maybe one day we'll put out 100 more. And we'll do a 200 episode.
Woo!
And
Then we'll watch all the 200th
episodes.
episodes. It'll be a lot. It will be impossible. Like there were not 200.
Yeah, how long is this one? Like 3 hours?
Yeah.
So.
Oh God. Thank you for staying with us.
Yes.
Not only for 100 episodes, but for this entire long extravaganza. You guys are champs. If you have any requests for shows or tropes or themes that you'd like us to talk about, please either tweet at us at Talking Tropes or comment on this link wherever you find it.
Yeah. Also, I really want to know if anybody noticed any mistakes in this one. Again, it was difficult to track down some of these 100th episodes. And also, I want to know if you have a favorite 100th episode.
Yeah, like, is this an episode that you remembered, or if you've watched any of the ones on this list, did they jump
or any
out
that
at
aren't
you?
on this list that we, of course, we can't talk about every show.
Right.
I want to hear what your favorite 100th special was.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye-bye.